Chapter 1120. Metamorphosis? Becoming a dragon? Li Yuchuan suddenly understood Tan Xiu's intention. Actually wanted to groom his son? But his son was only 8 years old this year. What aspect did an 8-year-old child have that was worthy of Tan Xiu's training? Tan Xiu calmly watched Li Yuchuan, who was lost in thought, and indifferently said, "I know you have some concerns. You think that I'm training your son to keep him by my side to threaten you. You can get the hell out of here if you have such a thought. You're not worthy of me using such means given your ability." At this moment, Tan Xiu looked around and found that aside from the 2 members of the Special Abilities Bureau who escorted him and the others, only Jin Shi and Wolfhead were around the 2 cars not far away. In a flash, Tan Xiu grabbed Li Yuchuan's arm and moved lightning fast. In nearly the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Jin Shi and Wolfhead with Li Yuchuan. What? Li Yuchuan was scared out of his wits by the sudden turn of events. Sensing that Tan Xiu released his arm, he immediately raised his hand to rub his eyes and pinched his waist hard. Not an illusion? Not a dream? Tan Xiu took a seat inside the car and looked at the dumbfounded Li Yuchuan outside. Then he indifferently said, "You should understand what I mean now, right? You're just a weakling worthy of training in my eyes, but there are countless weaklings like you in this world. You're not worthy of me using your son to threaten you." The car started. Li Yuchuan watched as Tan Xiu's car drove forward. Then, he turned his head with difficulty to look at Wolfhead, who had a faint smile on his face, and indifferently said, "You should be happy instead of doubting Boss's intentions. There aren't many people who can catch Boss's eyes, so you need to cherish him, especially for your son." Li Yuchuan felt his heartbeat speed up several times, and the thumping sound was like a thunderclap roaring inside his heart. Suddenly, he seemed to realize something. His eyes instantly fell on Wolfhead. He stared at him and said, "How do you know that the boss wants to cultivate my son?" Wolfhead rolled his eyes. While walking to the driver's seat, he lightly said, "Although boss didn't speak loudly, I could still hear him clearly. I forgot to tell you, but my hearing is at least 10 times better than a normal person." Did you hear that? At a distance of tens of meters, Wolfhead could actually hear it clearly? Li Yuchuan quickly got into the front seat and looked at Wolfhead, who started the car, and hurriedly asked, "Who the hell are you?" "Tang sect," answered Wolfhead indifferently. "What is the Tang sect?" asked Li Yuchuan. A proud look appeared on Wolfhead's face as he said word by word, "A sect formed by cultivators. If you want to become a disciple of the sect, you have to put in a lot of effort and complete the missions given by the sect. As long as you complete them well, you will have the qualifications to become a disciple of the sect." Cultivators? Li Yuchuan was not an ordinary person with no knowledge. He was once the captain of the Blue Eagle Special Combat Squad, so he knew a lot of secrets. Not only did he witness the power of ability users when he carried out missions abroad, but he also encountered cultivators. All of them were actually cultivators? Suppressing his excitement, Li Yuchuan hurriedly asked, "What's Boss Tang's status in the Tang sect? Am I now a disciple of the sect?" Wolfhead couldn't help laughing and rolled his eyes at Li Yuchuan snappily. "Are you dreaming? Even if the sect master is willing to take you as his subordinate, you can only be an outer disciple. You need to make great contributions to the sect to get the qualification to join the inner sect." "Boss Tang is actually the sect master of the Tang sect?" asked Li Yuchuan incredulously. Wolfhead nodded with deep veneration. "The Tang sect was founded by Boss, so he's naturally the sect master. Before you officially enter the inner sect, I'd like to give you a piece of advice. You must absolutely obey orders when you work in the outer sect. The Tang sect may not have many rules, but the hierarchy is very clear. You must be respectful when you meet the inner sect disciples in the future. You can't even breathe heavily when you see those elders. Of course, even I must be respectful in front of those inner sect elders." "How many inner sect disciples does the Tang sect have?" asked Li Yuchuan. "How many outer sect disciples are there in total?" Li Yuchuan asked. Wolfhead glanced at him and slowly said, "That's a secret of the sect, so I can't tell you. But there's something I need to warn you in advance. Some people in the sect may be your opponents, acquaintances, or even have a deep grudge against you. But from today onwards, You must let go of all your past grievances and treat them as your closest comrades in arms, as your brothers and sisters, as your own family. The biggest advantage of the Tang sect is its unity. Every disciple of the sect will give up their lives for their fellow sect members. I have no enemies, nor do I have any grudges with anyone. Li Yuchuan shook his head. Don't you think Jin sure looks familiar? Sneered Wolfhead. Li Yuchuan thought for a while and said, I did feel that he looked familiar when I first saw him, but I can't remember where I've seen him before. He's the bloodthirsty golden lion who massacred a city in Africa, said Wolfhead lightly. Li Yuchuan's eyes widened so much that his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. He held his breath and cried out involuntarily, He's the bloodthirsty golden lion? The butcher who slaughtered hundreds of arms dealers in Arg City? He's a butcher? Wolfhead sneered. That's because you haven't seen a more ruthless disciple of the sect. Forget it, I've said everything I need to say. I hope you can follow Spectre and become the newest inner sect disciple. Spectre? That lunatic? The blood drained from Li Yuchuan's face in an instant and he cried out involuntarily again. If you dare to call him a lunatic in front of him, he'll definitely drill you hard for 3 days, said Wolfhead lightly. Tens of thousands of Boy Scouts were drilled by him for 3 days and nearly got their skins peeled off. You're not even as good as those Boy Scouts. The corner of Li Yuchuan's mouth twitched a few times and he was shocked to the point where it was difficult to be any more shocked. Spectre, the world's #1 assassin. He was simply a devil in everyone's eyes. Even the biggest bosses in various countries were afraid of this devil, afraid that they would appear on his mission list. You said that the Boy Scouts are tens of thousands of children? Asked Li Yuchuan blankly. Will my son also be sent to the Boy Scouts in the future? Unless your son can stand out from tens of thousands of children and be appreciated by the sect master again, he can only risk his life to train in the Boy Scout army, said Wolfhead lightly. The rule of our Tang sect is that the strong will rise to the top and the weak will always be at the bottom. To be honest, even if you've become an outer sect disciple of the sect, I'm afraid you won't be able to enter the inner sect earlier than your son. Li Yuchuan fell into silence. He found that he really came across an opportunity like a carp leaping through the dragon gate. The person who gave him this opportunity not only saved his life, but also saved his wife and child, and also made him and his father become terrifying figures in the future. Li Yuchuan took a deep breath and said, One last question. There are more than 200 felons in Israel's labor camp 1319. Are they? Wolfhead raised his hand to interrupt him and lightly said, There are only the 2 of us here today, so I can answer your question. But remember this. You've become the sect master's man, so you must never mention even half a word about the Tang sect to outsiders. Everything that I've told you today must never be revealed to anyone else. That's right, Boss did it himself. Aside from Spectre, those people are all outer sect members who carry out some missions assigned by the Tang sect. Li Yuchuan was thoroughly frightened. He found that Tan Xiu's men were all a bunch of desperados, a bunch of demons and ghosts that countless people feared. Wolfhead seemed to sense his thoughts and lightly said, You're gravely mistaken if you think that the Tang sect is a nest of demons and ghosts. The Tang sect's rule is to never kill a good person unjustly and never bully the weak. We must be friendly to ordinary people and cruel to our enemies. The entire Tang sect is like a sharp knife in sect master's hand, protecting the good and slaying those who deserve to die. Li Yuchuan immediately felt relieved when he heard that, but then another question popped up in his mind. Can those cold-blooded desperados really behave themselves like Wolfhead said? Late at night. Dongshan Province, Shui family. Wearing a coat, Shui Guanzhong looked at the dark night outside the window and listened to the strange melody. A glint flashed in his eyes. When he came to the window, he saw a figure standing in the dark corner downstairs and had a bad premonition. It was Shui Xingmei. She was Shui Guanzhong's biological daughter and the most outstanding figure among the new generation of the Shui family. She was entrusted with the heavy responsibility of secretly managing the family's security company. But now she had come back, but not in the open. She hid in the dark and used a secret melody signal that only the father and daughter knew to call for help. It meant that something big had happened. What's wrong, Guanzhong? Lin Ping, who was on the bed behind him, sat up in a daze and looked at her husband standing by the window. Go back to sleep. I have something to deal with, said Shui Guanzhong in a deep voice. After saying that, he strode to the door and quickly appeared outside the building. After he quickly entered the dark shade of the tree, the father and daughter tacitly walked toward a darker place. What happened? Shui Guanzhong's voice was very low, and only Shui Xingmei could barely hear it. Dad, Tan Xiu wants to see you, said Shui Xingmei. Tan Xiu? Shui Guanzhong stared blankly and asked with a confused face. Which Tan Xiu is it? Tan Xiu of the Tang family in the imperial capital, answered Shui Xingmei. Shui Guanzhong's expression changed and he frowned. He's the most outstanding disciple of the Tang family and the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation. What does he want to see me for? It's the last day. I'm begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1121. Shui Xingmei told him what had happened in Shanghai in a low voice. Finally, she said, I'm not sure what Tan Xiu is planning, but he asked me to come back in advance and inform you to find a secret place. The fact that he wants to meet with you must not be known by a third person other than you and me. Shui Guanzhong was silent for a long time before he slowly said, If it's a blessing, it's not a calamity. If it's a calamity, we can't avoid it. The strength of the Tang family in the imperial capital is not something that our Shui family can compare with. If he wanted to get rid of the Shui family, it would be a piece of cake. I don't think he wants to deal with us, but he has other motives. Shui Xingmei asked, Dad, what should we do? Shui Guanzhong said, If he's looking for me for a secret matter, we really can't let outsiders know. How about this? Contact him later and tell him that I'll be waiting for him at the pavilion in the middle of the lake. Shui Xingmei's expression slightly changed and she said in a low voice, Dad, the lake pavilion is a secret stronghold of our Shui family. The people guarding there are all trusted men you've nurtured since childhood. Tan Xiu finds out. Shui Guanzhong raised his hand to interrupt Shui Xingmei's words and lightly said, Our Shui family is a big family with a big business and can absolutely be ranked in the top 3 in the entire Dongshan province. But it's precisely because of this reason that I'm afraid there are countless pairs of eyes staring at us and me. Tan Xiu's identity was also extraordinary. If he appeared here openly, he would also be discovered by countless forces. Only by placing it in the pavilion at the center of the lake can I be at ease. Shui Xingmei gritted her teeth and said, I'll rush to the pavilion in the middle of the lake and have the people there temporarily evacuate. Shui Guanzhong slowly nodded and said, I'll still say the same thing. If it's a blessing, it's not a disaster. If it's a disaster, it can't be avoided. Tomorrow morning, I will appear at the pavilion in the center of the lake. Early morning. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the sparkling lake in the eastern suburbs of Ji City, Shui Guanzhong, who personally drove there, quickly drove the car into the dirt road ahead and disappeared into the dense woods. The lake was very large, and in the middle of the lake was an antique building. From the outside, the building looked extremely dilapidated, and the 2 long bridges leading to it were also broken. After Shui Guanzhong parked the car in the dense forest, he got out of the car and took out a black bag. He took out a diving suit from inside and quickly changed into it. Then he observed the surroundings and found nothing suspicious. Only then did he approach the shore and gradually disappear into the lake. Half an hour later, Shui Guanzhong appeared in the dilapidated classical building in the middle of the lake. When he quickly took off his diving suit, Shui Xingmei came up to him with a set of clean clothes. Dad, I've contacted Tan Xiu. He should be here soon, Shui Xingmei said. Shui Guanzhong nodded silently. After changing his clothes and dressing neatly, he walked into a room that was spotless and decorated in an antique style. After taking a seat on a mahogany chair, he slowly said, Zin, go outside and wait for him. Prepare some diving suits. If he's not good at swimming, bring him here. All right. Shui Xingmei nodded. Just as she was about to put on her diving suit and leave, a voice reached her ears. No need. After a while, 2 figures silently appeared at the door of the room. Tan Xiu, who didn't have any trace of water on him, entered the room with Jin Shi. He looked at Shui Guanzhong, who got up and said with a faint smile, Patriarch Shui, I'm Tan Xiu. A shocked expression appeared on Shui Guanzhong's face. He carefully observed Tan Xiu a few times and then asked, "How did you come here?" "We flew here," replied Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Shui Guanzhong slightly furrowed his brows and said, "Please don't joke around, young Master Tang. This place is located in the middle of the lake. The two bridges have been broken and there's at least a gap of tens of meters in the middle. It's very difficult to come here without wearing a diving suit." Tan Xiu raised his brows and looked at the square table at the side. His fingers pinched a few seals and a violent force immediately destroyed the square table, turning it into ashes. And at this moment, a wave of energy instantly condensed the scattered ashes into a ball of ash that was the size of a basketball, and it floated in front of them. Shui Guanzhong took a step back and sat on the chair with an expression as if he had just seen a ghost on his square face. Shui Xingmei, on the other hand, also looked like she had just seen a ghost with fear covering her delicate face. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and slightly lifted his legs as he walked toward Shui Guanzhong step by step. When he came before Shui Guanzhong, his feet were nearly a meter away from the ground. Just like that, he stood in the air in front of Shui Guanzhong and asked with a strange expression, "Now, do you believe that we flew here?" Gulp, Shui Guanzhong desperately gulped down his saliva. He was, after all, the patriarch of a family with extensive knowledge. After a brief shock, he gradually calmed down and nodded. "I believe you." Tan Xiu smiled and his figure instantly appeared on the chair opposite Shui Guanzhong. After taking a seat, he said with a smile, "Patriarch Shui, please don't think that I'm Superman. I just have some abilities that Superman doesn't have. Of course, I'm sure you're very confused about this meeting, aren't you?" Shui Guanzhong stood up and personally brewed a pot of tea for Tan Xiu. After respectfully handing it over to Tan Xiu, he returned to his original seat and nodded. "This Shui is indeed puzzled, and I hope young Master Tang can dispel it." "You should thank your daughter," said Tan Xiu. "If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have set my eyes on you. After all, there are many big families in Dongshan province, and some of them are stronger than your Shui family. This time, I'm here to give your Shui family an opportunity, as well as a chance for you and your daughter. As for whether you can take it or not, it's all up to you." Shui Guanzhong realized that Tan Xiu was about to reveal his purpose, so he immediately asked, "Please speak, young Master Tang." "I want to establish an intelligence network that covers the entire China," said Tan Xiu. "I want you to be the team leader in Dongshan province. In other words, as long as you promise me, you'll be a member of the intelligence network I've arranged." "What do you want to do?" asked Shui Guanzhong. "You're not qualified to know what I want to do," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "You only need to know that you must fulfill your duty once you promise me." Shui Guanzhong forced a smile and said, "Young Master Tang, the state won't allow it." Tan Xiu interrupted him and indifferently said, "The director of the Special Abilities Bureau, Duanmu Lin, will turn a blind eye as long as he doesn't catch my intelligence agents. Besides, an intelligence agent who is caught by others is simply trash, and it's not a pity to lose him." Shui Guanzhong was secretly startled. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu had such great power that even the terrifying figure of the Special Abilities Bureau was willing to turn a blind eye. "Do I still have the right to refuse, young Master Tang? You're a smart man, so you naturally know what will happen if you refuse me," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "Of course, I won't make you work for nothing. I told you that I'll give you and your daughter a great opportunity, as well as your Shui family. As long as you become the team leader of Dongshan province, you'll be my man." Shui Guanzhong pondered for half a minute before he firmly nodded and said, "I promise you." Tan Xiu gave him a thumbs up and praised, "A wise man submits to circumstances. But don't you want to know what kind of opportunity I'll give you and your daughter?" "Young Master Tang, we'll take whatever opportunity you give us, boss," said Shui Guanzhong seriously. "It's our honor to work for you, young Master Tang." Tan Xiu chuckled. "You're indeed worthy to be the Shui family's patriarch. You can see things clearly and know that there's no turning back, so you immediately set your position. I'm sure you've seen the ability I just displayed. Let me tell you something. I'm a cultivator, and my strength is beyond your imagination. Since you've chosen to work for me, I'll teach you and your daughter a cultivation technique. Although the basic level of this cultivation technique is very low and can only let you cultivate to the peak of qi refinement at most, it can also let you and your daughter become experts. Even if you face a martial Dao grandmaster, you can easily kill them with a slap. Shui Guanzhong and Shui Xingmei exchanged glances, and their eyes suddenly lit up. Tan Xiu continued, as long as you and your daughter perform well in the future, the subsequent cultivation techniques will be rewarded to you. Foundation establishment, golden core, nascent soul. In short, the later cultivation techniques will depend on your ability to collect intelligence in Dongshan province. But if you don't do well or your identity is exposed, you'll be replaced and the entire Shui family will face extermination. Opportunity and crisis coexisted. Shui Guanzhong took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, I firmly believe I can do it well, boss. But if I don't do well or if my identity is exposed, you can do whatever you want to me. Tan Xiu nodded and pointed to Jin Shi. He's Jin Shi, the person in charge of the entire China's intelligence network. He'll be your immediate superior in the future. He'll help you with the construction of the intelligence network in Dongshan province. However, the deputy team leader of Dongshan province will be selected by him. You're not qualified to know who the other party is. Both of you will exist at the same time. Shui Guanzhong's expression slightly changed as he nodded and said, I understand. I'll go all out if there's competition. Tan Xiu took out the cultivation manual he had written in advance from his interspatial ring and handed it to Shui Guanzhong. He then threw a bottle of pills to him and said, You'll figure out the cultivation matters yourself. This porcelain bottle contains 6 essence amassing pills that have been weakened by 10 times. After you've familiarized yourself with your cultivation, take one every 3 days once you start cultivating. You should be able to feel a trace of true essence growing in your body after you've taken 3 pills. Thank you for the reward, boss. Shui Guanzhong and Shui Xingmei replied at the same time. Tan Xiu looked at Jin Shi and indifferently said, I'll give you half a day to discuss the preliminary situation of the intelligence network construction in Dongshan province with the father and daughter. I'll go ahead and wait for you in He province. Brothers and sisters, hurry up and throw out your monthly votes, or they'll be reset _. Chapter 1122. Zheng City, He province. After Tan Xiu arrived with Wolfhead and entered a taxi, Wolfhead reported in a low voice, Boss, I had a comrade in arms in Zheng City. He was seriously injured and disabled in a mission, so he retired earlier than me. I've read the intel of He province and found his name. I know that he's from a family in Zheng City. Which family? Asked Tan Xiu. The Fan family, replied Wolfhead in a low voice. Tan Xiu also read the intel when he came to He province this time. He learned that there were not many intelligence personnel in He province for the time being, and the amount of information they collected was pitiful. It would be a good choice if he could find someone familiar with the situation here to understand the situation. Contact him and see him, said Wolfhead. He used to be my comrade in arms, boss. We've been through life and death together. But we haven't contacted each other for 6 years, so I don't know if he's changed or not. Pondering for a moment, Tang Xiu then said, I know your concerns. Being in a place is different from being in the army. The army is purer and purer. Many of the iron-blooded soldiers in the army will have their temperament change after they enter society. But since you mentioned him now, it means that you still believe in him. Contact him. You'll know if he's changed after you meet him. Understood. Wolfhead replied and took out his mobile phone. Zheng City, Yuhong Lane. Shu Shenjia Express Hotel was the hotel with the best environment and the best service in Yuhong Alley. The owner, Fan Gang, was even a reputable figure in Yuhong Alley. He was a righteous person who dealt with people from all walks of life, yet he was able to mingle with them perfectly. At this time, the general manager's office of Shu Shenjia Express Hotel was filled with smoke, and the pungent smell of smoke filled every corner of the room. The curtains were still drawn despite it being broad daylight, and the lights in the room illuminated the space. You can't play like this, brother gang. You've won 9 rounds in a row. Do you want to win all our money? A tattooed, bare-chested man threw the cards in his hand on the table and said with a wry smile. Another burly man in a black vest with a cigarette hanging from the corner of his mouth also angrily said, "Brother Shwe, I know you're lucky today, but isn't this too heaven-defying? The few of us lost so badly. Even if you're lucky, you should have secretly gone easy on us." "That's right." Fan Gang, who was wearing a vest and a thick gold chain around his neck, had a smile on his tough face. He quickly swept the stacks of money on the table in front of him and grinned. "Your nephew is going to attend primary school this year, isn't he? No matter what, I have to earn some tuition fees for him, right? How much did you guys lose? He was just making a ruckus here. Hurry up and deal the cards. I'm going to break the record today and have a 10-game winning streak. Your money is enough to send my nephew to the moon to study." Black-hearted, Fan Gang did not care about their words at all. He smiled and lit a cigarette. Ring, ring, ring. His cell phone on the table suddenly rang. While he was shuffling the cards, Fan Gang grabbed his phone and looked at the caller ID. He found that it was an unfamiliar number and was about to hang up when he suddenly remembered that he would not be home for dinner tonight. He had yet to tell his wife. Therefore, he directly picked up the phone and wanted to chat with the caller for a while before calling his wife. Fan Gang speaking. "Who is this?" "It's me." Wolfhead's deep voice came from the phone. Fan Gang stared blankly for a moment. He faintly felt that the voice was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember whose voice it was. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Who is this?" "Wolfhead." The voice came from the phone again. Fan Gang thought for a moment and his expression drastically changed all of a sudden. He abruptly pushed the table in front of him, stood up and called out, "Are you Captain?" "It's me." Fan Gang's face turned red and he excitedly called out, "Captain, you? Where are you now? I've missed you so much all these years." The other three strong men exchanged dismayed glances upon seeing Fan Gang's expression. Fan Gang had always been calm and collected in their eyes, and this was the first time they saw him lose his composure like this. "I just arrived in Jing City. Let's meet somewhere." Fan Gang turned around and walked outside. As he dashed out of the door, he hurriedly said, "You've arrived in Jing City? That's great. I'm at Yuhong Alley. Where are you? I'll pick you up immediately. Send me your specific address, I'll come find you." "All right." Fan Gang hung up the phone and quickly sent a message. He then turned around and went back to the room. He looked at the eyes that were cast on him at the same time. He suppressed the excitement inside and said in a deep voice, "Brothers, I have something important to deal with today, so I can't accompany you to play cards. I'll treat you to wine and meat some other day as an apology." A big man with a bare back and tattoos curiously asked, "Who is it, Brother Gang? Who can make you lose your composure like this?" "It's a friend I haven't seen for many years," said Fan Gang. "He's in Jing City, so I need to see him." "All right." The others didn't say anything after hearing it and left with a lack of interest. After seeing off his three friends, Fan Gang excitedly rubbed his hands and dialed a cell number, saying aloud, "Old Wei, send me as much God's nectar as you can get. I'll pay you 10 times the price." "Fuck off. I only have 2 bottles, Old Wei, I'm begging you. I need some God's nectar to entertain a very important friend. It's very important. Sell it to me and I'll owe you a favor." The other party was silent for a few seconds and then slowly said, "I'll send someone to deliver it to you." Fan Gang hung up the phone and dialed another cell number, quickly saying, "Send me to Daoxiang House and buy all 18 specialties there. Do remember to send them to me at once." "Understood." Afterward, Fan Gang made several phone calls in succession. After giving some instructions, he came to the first floor and spoke to the lobby manager who came to greet him in a deep voice. "We'll have a distinguished guest later. Take some people to seal off the 3rd floor after he arrives. Anyone who comes up must report to me and get his permission before they can come over. But someone will." Half an hour later, Fan Gang, who was standing in Yuhong Alley, kept looking at the road in the distance. He had once been glorious in his life, but it was the rain of bullets and rain of blood many years ago. He wielded a steel spear and killed powerful enemies. This was what he once believed in, Unfortunately, Ever since he left that olive green land and put down the spear in his hand, he had lost half of his heart. The other half was his group of brothers who fought side by side with him day and night. 6 years. It seemed to be a long time, but it was just a blink of an eye for him. With the passage of time, not only did the brotherhood not diminish, it continued to increase instead. He missed them more and more. Suddenly, his burly body shook slightly, and his eyes shone with intense excitement. He clearly saw 2 people slowly coming from the corner of the street not far away. One of them was his former brother, his former captain, Wolfhead. In a flash, Fan Gang dashed toward Wolfhead. As tears welled up in his tiger eyes, he hugged Wolfhead in less than 10 seconds. Their fists hit each other's back, but neither of them spoke. Tan Xiu looked at the 2 men hugging and glanced at Fan Gang's right leg. With his eyesight, he could naturally see that there was something wrong with Fan Gang's right leg. Although his speed was still very fast, it was somewhat unnatural. Whether it was the span or the stability, it was obviously not enough. "Captain." Finally, after the 2 separated, Fan Gang said with red eyes, 6 years, 1 month, and 3 days. We brothers haven't seen each other for 6 years, 1 month, and 3 days. All these years, I've been dreaming to see you again, to see our former brothers. Wolfhead could feel that Fan Gang's words came from his heart. He patted him on the shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Little Five is dead, De Zhuang is dead, Xiangzi is dead, A Long is dead, and Xiao Dongbei is dead. The others are all here." Little Five? De Zhuang? Xiangzi? A Long? Xiao Dongbei? Fan Gang suddenly looked up and controlled his tears to not let them flow out of his eyes. After a while, he asked with a slightly hoarse voice, "What about the other brothers? Where are they?" Wolfhead turned to look at Tan Xiu. He shook his head and said, "Let me introduce you, little gang. This is my boss, as well as the boss of the other living brothers. He's Tan Xiu." A look of disbelief appeared on Fan Gang's face. He looked at Tan Xiu and then at Wolfhead. After seeing Wolfhead nod to him, he accepted the fact and said, "I'm Tan Xiu, the general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation, the famous young divine doctor of China. Boss Tang, I'm Fan Gang, Wolfhead's sworn brother. What about now?" Tan Xiu shook hands with him and lightly smiled. But Fan Gang instantly realized Tan Xiu's meaning. He glared at him and said in a deep voice, "Whether it was in the past, present, or future, they are all my brothers. Brothers that I've sworn to live and die with, brothers that I can give my life to." Tan Xiu patted Fan Gang's shoulder and lightly smiled. "Lead the way. Anyhow, we're your guests. You can't make us accompany you to chat on the street." Fan Gang suddenly came to his senses. He turned to Wolfhead with an apologetic look and said, "The food and wine are ready. Come with me." Tan Xiu followed Fan Gang. His eyes glanced at his leg again and said, "If my guess is correct, your right leg should be a prosthetic one, right?" Fan Gang's expression turned stiff and he silently nodded. In the past, he wouldn't have been discharged from the army early had it not been for his right foot and leg being blown up when he was carrying out a mission abroad. This matter had simply become a sore point in his heart and had always been a pain in his heart. As a gift for our first meeting, Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, "I'll cure your leg and restore it to its original state." Fan Gang stopped and looked at Tan Xiu for a while. Then he forced a smile and shook his head, saying, "Boss Tang, you must be joking. My leg is gone, so how can it grow back? I appreciate your kindness." Chapter 11:23. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and didn't emphasize that he could cure Fan Gang's leg. It was either he believed it or he didn't believe it. The opportunity had come, but Fan Gang could only blame himself for not grasping it. On the 3rd floor of the Shu Shenjia Express Hotel, the spacious and bright general manager's office was no longer in a mess like before. For cleaners had cleaned the office nonstop, and the entire office was now clean and tidy. Even the floor was spotless. The sofa and the coffee table in the middle of the office had been moved to the corner, replaced by a rectangular dining table and 4 leather chairs. Fragrant dishes and 2 bottles of God's nectar were also placed on the table. A brand new tea set, teapot, and teacups were placed on the side, emitting smoke and a faint aroma of tea. Please take a seat, two gentlemen. Fan Gang personally pulled out a chair and motioned Wolfhead to sit first. Although he was puzzled as to why Wolfhead would lower himself to work for Tan Shio given his character, but in his mind, even if Tan Shio was Wolfhead's boss, it would still be difficult for him to win his respect. Wolfhead slightly shook his head and personally pulled out a chair for Tan Shio. After Tan Shio took a seat, he then sat on the chair next to Tan Shio. Looking at Fan Gang, who slightly furrowed his brows and also sat down, Wolfhead calmly said, "Little Gang, I haven't come to see you for so many years due to my own reasons. I hope you can forgive me. Whether we're in the army or in society, you're always my brother." "I understand." Fan Gang nodded heavily. Wolfhead continued, "I came here this time to catch up with you. On the other hand, my boss has something he wants to discuss with you. But before that, I hope you can seriously treat every word my boss said to you, including his words that he can cure your leg." Looking at Tan Shio with a strange expression, Fan Gang immediately forced a smile and said, "It's not that I don't believe Boss Tang, Captain. It's just that my leg, you know how serious the injury is. Nobody can make me grow another leg unless the immortal is alive." "I told you to believe in my boss," said Wolfhead in a deep voice. Fan Gang felt helpless in his heart. Even though he didn't believe it, he still nodded. Tan Shio patted Wolfhead's shoulder and said with a faint smile, "Wolfhead, I know what you're thinking. If he will let me try, I will cure him. Let's not talk about this for now because we still have a lot of places to go, so let's talk about business first." Wolfhead nodded in response. He then looked at Fan Gang and said, "Little Gang, my boss personally came to this city this time because he wants to know more about He Province from you. The bureaucracy, the business world, and the underground forces. I believe that as a descendant of the Fan family, you should be very clear about them." Fan Gang was confused. "Why do you ask?" Wolfhead said, "Gangzi, as a brother, I can only tell you one thing. My boss has his own ideas, and it's confidential. He can't tell others for the time being. Just like what we did in the past, don't ask what you shouldn't ask, else it will bring you a lot of trouble." Fan Gang's brows furrowed again. Although he felt a bit lost inwardly and felt that the brotherly relationship between them had changed, he didn't show it. He just looked at the brotherly relationship between them and slowly said, "The forces in He Province are very complicated, and the network of relationships is even more complicated. Some people have eyes and ears, and some families have deep heritage. Add to that the political officials behind them. In short, it's too difficult to explain everything clearly. Even if I'm well informed and have a good understanding of Zheng City, I still can't fully understand the situation in the whole province." "Can your Fan family be ranked in the top 5 in He Province?" asked Tan Shio. "Top 5? Fan Gang wore a strange expression and let out a dry smile. "Let alone the top 5. It's already good enough to be ranked in the top 20. A disappointed look flashed in Tan Shio's eyes as he said, "Tell me about the top 5 families in He Province according to what you know." Fan Gang pondered for a moment and shook his head. "I can't say the exact top 5, but I can say the top 3. The number 1 family in He Province, the Zhu family, has many descendants and ancient martial arts experts. Whether it's the business world or the political world, their descendants can be seen everywhere. Even in the surrounding provinces, their shadows can be seen. Therefore, the Zhu family deserves to be the number 1 family in He Province. The Yelu family can be ranked second because their land is in Xian City. The big boss of Xian City is a member of the Yelu family, and the Xinfeng Tower is their property. They are involved in countless industries, and their speed of making money is also terrifying. The floating snow chateau, the villa master is unknown, and the vice master is Xue Mengdai. More than 70% of the entertainment and transportation industries in He Province are under the floating snow chateau's control. The biggest security company in He Province also belongs to them. Rumor has it that every city in He Province, from the big ones to the small ones, the Public Security Bureau chief's position is inextricably linked to the floating snow chateau. These 3 families have deep foundations, but I'm not sure to what extent. What I'm sure of is that they have their own armed forces and a large number of ancient martial arts experts. Tan Xiu's eyes flickered as he watched Fan Gang finish his explanation. He didn't pay much attention to the first and second families, the Zhu and Yelu families, but he was a bit curious about the floating snow chateau because there were many uncertain factors in Fan Gang's introduction. Even Tan Xiu could clearly see that there was something wrong with the floating snow chateau. If it wasn't attached to other forces, then this floating snow chateau could be of use. Furthermore, he wanted to know who the floating snow chateau's villa master was. Where's the floating snow chateau? Tan Xiu lit up a cigarette and asked slowly. Lianing County, answered Fan Gang. You mean this floating snow chateau is also located in Jing City? Asked Tan Xiu in surprise. Like the Zhu family, it's also a local? That's right. Fan Gang nodded. Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, there's a saying that two tigers can't live on the same mountain. Both of them can exist in Zheng City at the same time and develop at the same time. It's quite interesting. Fan Gang, do you think the Zhu family knows about the floating snow chateau's background? Even if they don't know everything, they should know more than me, said Fan Gang seriously. The Zhu family is very domineering and had some conflicts with the floating snow chateau in the past. Instead, it was because of a conflict more than 10 years ago that caused both sides to suffer considerable losses. Later on, I heard that the floating snow chateau's villa master came forward. Since then, the Zhu family has never made things difficult for the floating snow chateau. I don't know what happened exactly. Who's the Zhu family's patriarch? Asked Tan Xiu. Zhu Xinghe, answered Fan Gang. Tan Xiu got up and patted Wolfhead's shoulder, saying with a faint smile, it's not easy for you brothers to get together. Have a few cups of wine. I'm going to take care of something, we'll stay here tonight. All right. Wolfhead knew what Tan Xiu was going to do, so he nodded without a word. Inside the office, Fan Gang's eyes retracted from the door where Tan Xiu disappeared. After 4 or 5 minutes, he looked at Wolfhead and forced a smile. Captain, I really didn't expect that you'd become someone's bodyguard. I'm not a bodyguard. Wolfhead shook his head. Fan Gang raised his brows and asked, then what is it? Wolfhead was silent for a while and then said, I'm different from you. I've been an orphan since I was a child and joined the army when I was a teenager. I've been accustomed to the hail of bullets and going through fire and water all these years. Only by following him can I return to my former life. Fan Gang abruptly got up and incredulously said, what did you say? Following him can you return to the hail of bullets? Going through fire and water and going through fire and water? Isn't he the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation? Besides, he also has some Chinese medicine skills. Wolfhead waved his hand and motioned him to sit down. Then he said, Gang, don't inquire about him if you don't want to return to your former life. I can only tell you one thing, and that is that his power is not something you can imagine, and his terror is also not something you can imagine. Tell me, Captain, is what he does good or evil? Fan Gang asked in a deep voice. Wolfhead replied with a resolute and decisive tone. Fan Gang secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that the captain wouldn't lie to him. After thinking for a few seconds, he said, Captain, I also want to be with you. Wolfhead shook his head and said, if you want to be with us, you must be prepared to die at any time. Let me ask you, after you graduated from the army, did you get married? Do you have a wife and children? Do you need to take care of your parents? Can you let go of your current status? This, Fan Gang hesitated for a moment and then bitterly said, it's been a long time. Though I still have my skills, I can't be compared to the past. I'm talking about the mentality. Wolfhead smiled and said, if you can't let go, then live a good life. We used to be old brothers, so I'll give you a big gift if there's a chance in the future. What big gift? Fan Gang was confused. If you're willing, your child will be more brilliant and have greater achievements than you in the future, said Wolfhead with a meaningful tone. Fan Gang stared blankly and asked with a surprised expression, you mean, I'll give my son to you to train? Wolfhead nodded without a word and said, I can't help you for now because my status is too low. In case I make boss unhappy, I'll have a hard time in the future. But wait for me. As long as you're willing, your son will definitely have a meteoric rise. Though he won't be able to go down in history, he'll be much better than you. Of course, if he's outstanding and can, your Fan family will be proud of him in the future. Fan Gang hesitated for a long time before he forced a smile and said, I'm willing, but my wife. Wolfhead sighed and shook his head. I didn't say anything. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and said, Gang, my boss can cure your leg. Remember, don't doubt him, because there's nothing he can't do in this world. You must ask him to cure your leg when you see him again. It's a new month, I'm looking for a guaranteed monthly vote. Chapter 11:24. In the evening, a cool breeze bypassed the eaves and passed through the gap of the door, gently caressing Zhu Xinghe's face inside the room. Even the strands of white hair in front of his temples were slightly fluttering. At the Zhu family's manor, it was the most heavily guarded place in the entire Zheng city, just like the inner courtyard of the imperial palace in ancient times. Open sentries and hidden sentry posts were everywhere. Even for a martial Dao grandmaster with a decent lightness skill, it was extremely difficult to sneak into the Zhu clan's villa without a sound. Zhu Xinghe was now 60 years old, but his body was still strong and healthy, with a pair of wise and far-sighted eyes on his ruddy face. It could be said that the Zhu family could develop to its present scale and become the #1 family in He province mainly because of his own hard work. Who's there? Zhu Xinghe, who was quietly reading a book, suddenly shouted with a changed expression. At the same time, he grabbed a sharp dagger in his hand and held it in a backhand grip, his eyes focused on the closed door. Creak! The door was gently pushed open and Tan Xiao, who was wearing a black casual outfit and a bronze mask, strode into the room. A smile was revealed in his eyes when he saw Zhu Xinghe's action. Zhu Xinghe? You're the Zhu family's patriarch, right? Zhu Xinghe coldly stared at Tan Xiao. He didn't immediately notify the family's guards because he was perfectly aware of one thing. This man was very powerful since he could come here without anyone noticing and stand in front of him. There was also someone like him in the past who appeared in front of him without alerting the family's guards. Although it was only once, this man was indeed very powerful. Who are you? Tan Xiao strode into the room and closed the door. He then grabbed a chair and put it in front of Zhu Xinghe and lightly said, It doesn't matter who I am. I don't have any intention to kill you either. I took the liberty to come here this time to ask you a few questions. I'll leave as long as you answer me honestly and give me a satisfactory answer. Zhu Xinghe slightly furrowed his brows and lightly said, There was also someone like you who stood in front of me without making a sound, mister. But she still introduced herself as it's the most basic courtesy. If you want me to answer your questions, no problem, but I need to know who you are. Tan Xiao lightly said, If you know my identity, it will bring you a lot of trouble and even a lot of trouble to your Zhu family. Even so, you still want to know my identity? My family has never been afraid of trouble, said Zhu Xinghe in a deep voice. Are you sure? Tan Xiao's aura surged out in an instant, directly suppressing Zhu Xinghe as he sneered. Zhu Xinghe's expression changed drastically. He struggled to get rid of this terrifying pressure, but what shocked him was that even though the true qi in his body surged crazily and he almost exhausted all his strength, he still couldn't move an inch. This person, how terrifying, even more terrifying than her in the past. Tan Xiao asked again, Are you sure? Zhu Xinghe fell silent. Although he could speak now, he didn't dare to persist. Given the terrifying strength of the other party, he was afraid that he alone could kill all the guards of the Zhu family in one night, including all the members of the Zhu family. After a long while, with a bit of helplessness and bitterness, Zhu Xinghe slowly asked, What do you want to ask? Tan Xiao retracted his aura and crossed his legs. He then took out a half-pack of cigarettes and lit one up. Afterward, he threw the remaining pack to Zhu Xinghe and lightly said, Your Zhu family is the #1 family in He province. I think it's not only your strength that's powerful, but also your intelligence network. You're in a high position, so you should have met that person before. The main purpose of my visit this time is that I hope you can talk to me about the floating snow chateau. The floating snow chateau? Zhu Xinghe's expression slightly changed and he forced a wry smile. You're the same kind of people. Why do you have to make things difficult for an ordinary person like me? If there's any feud between you, I'll trouble you to solve it yourself. Of course. Our affairs won't affect you or your Zhu family, said Tan Xiu. I just want to get some information. After all, we all know that knowing the enemy and knowing yourself is the key to victory in every battle. Are you and the floating snow chateau enemies? Asked Zhu Xinghe. Tan Xiu stretched out a finger and shook it. No. I can't be sure that the floating snow chateau is my enemy. Answer me, Zhu Xinghe. Who is the floating snow chateau's master? Zhu Xinghe was silent for a moment and slowly said, Shui Wuhan. Be more specific, said Tan Xiu. Shui Wuhan. She's a woman. I don't know what she looks like. I've only seen her once in my life, said Zhu Xinghe. At that time, she wore a bronze mask just like you and appeared in front of me. She's very strong. The aura she released at that time was slightly weaker than yours, but the gap wasn't big. As for the rest, I don't know. You mean, she came to see you personally because of the friction between you two? Asked Tan Xiu. Zhu Xinghe instantly realized that this mysterious man must have investigated him and the floating snow chateau before coming here. That's right. So, you mean that she's also a cultivator? Tan Xiu nodded. Apart from cultivators, who else can have such formidable strength like you? Zhu Xinghe forced a wry smile. I'm very strong among ordinary people and have broken through to the martial arts grandmaster realm more than a decade ago. But compared to you, it's like the difference between clouds and mud. Tan Xiu quietly pondered for a few minutes and then asked again, what's the special characteristic of this person? She's tall and wore a white dress. The only special characteristic is that she was barefooted, said Zhu Xinghe. I saw it very clearly at that time. Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes and nodded. Tell me about the floating snow chateau situation. Zhu Xinghe nodded and said, the floating snow chateau is known as the third major force in He province, but that's not the case. If my guess is correct, the overall power of the floating snow chateau is definitely much stronger than our Zhu family. Needless to say, just Shui Wuhan alone is enough to exterminate all the members of our Zhu family if they were to fight. The current manager of the floating snow chateau is the deputy chateau master, Shui Mengdai. This woman is very strong and has powerful means. In just a short span of 20 years, the floating snow chateau's business has spread all over the province, and many businesses have been quietly monopolized by them. That's right, I need to emphasize that the members of the floating snow chateau are all women. All women? A surprised expression appeared on Tan Xiu's face. Yeah, all of them. Zhu Xinghe forced a smile. It said that women can hold up half the sky, and it's completely verified by them. Those women may have some men under their control, but those men only work for them and are not members of the floating snow chateau. As far as I know, there's only one man who can step into the floating snow chateau in the past few decades, and it happened a few months ago. Who's that man? Tan Xiu's expression shifted and he asked. I don't know much about him. I only know his name, Chu Yuan, answered Zhu Xinghe. Chu Yuan? A handsome face emerged in Tan Xiu's mind, along with his elegant appearance. He was once the successor of the Imperial Garden in Shanghai, a famous business genius in Shanghai, a member of the occult sect, and a former pursuer of Shuiyu. However, how could he enter the floating snow chateau? Could it be that some woman in the floating snow chateau has taken a liking to him? The thought of this possibility made Tan Xiu immediately smile and he asked, is there anything else about the floating snow chateau? Something very special. Zhu Xinghe shook his head and said, we may be in Jing City, but the floating snow chateau has hidden itself too deeply and is very low-key. Those who are exposed to the outside world are those who work for the floating snow chateau. Even I don't know much about the members of the floating snow chateau. Tan Xiu no longer asked about the situation of the floating snow chateau and instead asked, aren't you afraid that I'm a member of the floating snow chateau? Aren't you afraid to answer my question? Zhu Xinghe smiled and shook his head. I just told you that there are no men in the floating snow chateau. Tan Xiu nodded in response. The door instantly opened and Tan Xiu, who was sitting on the chair, disappeared into thin air. There was only a faint sound of the door closing, proving that someone had just been there. Ha! Zhu Xinghe heaved a sigh of relief and took out a cigarette with trembling hands. He lit it up and took a puff, but his expression slightly changed all of a sudden. This cigarette? He could easily feel that the smoke turned into a warm current that flowed to his limbs and bones as he inhaled it. Just this puff alone was enough to make him feel that it was worth several months of painstaking cultivation. Suddenly, a familiar voice entered his ears. Inform your Zhu family's intel operatives to stay dormant. Tell them not to deliberately gather any intel or investigate anyone for the next 6 months. Zhu Xinghe's expression changed and a look of awe appeared in his eyes. He stood up and cupped his fists, saying, "This Zhu Xinghe dares not disobey your command. The Zhus will no longer pay attention to intel for the next 6 months." Bush, bush, bush. Several figures flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared outside the door. As the door was pushed open, a middle-aged man in a black training suit and carrying a long saber on his back vigilantly glanced around. Then, he respectfully cupped his fists and said, "What happened, Patriarch?" Zhu Xinghe walked out of the door and observed the surroundings a few times. Then, he forced a smile and said, "Some guests just came." Everyone's expression changed, revealing a look of shock. "Is it the one from the floating snow chateau again?" exclaimed the middle-aged man in a low voice. "No. It's someone more terrifying than her." Zhu Xinghe shook his head. The few of them exchanged dismayed glances and suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. The one from the floating snow chateau had given them a huge shock and awe a decade ago. They didn't expect that someone more powerful than her would appear now. Chapter 1125. When Tan Xiu returned to the Shu Shenjia Express Hotel, Jin Shi had already arrived. Wolfhead, on the other hand, had a strong alcoholic smell since he drank some wine, but he was still in high spirits as he waited for Tan Xiu. "How was it, Sect Master?" asked Wolfhead with a glint in his eyes. "I thought the Zhus should know more about the floating snow chateau since they're the #1 family in He province." Tan Xiu shook his head. "But I personally asked Zhu Xinghe and found that he doesn't know much about the floating snow chateau. It seems I need to go there myself if I want to figure out the ins and outs of the floating snow chateau." "I'll go with you, Sect Master," said Jin Shi. Tan Xiu thought for a while and slowly shook his head. "Notify Xiao Xue and tell her to come here personally. Try to get her here before tomorrow evening." "Understood," replied Jin Shi respectfully. Liaonian County was only 100 kilometers away from Zheng City's downtown area. Compared to Zheng City, this place could definitely be called a remote and desolate place. However, the natural environment here was very good with mountains on one side and rivers on the other. An ordinary-looking manor was located right here. The floating snow chateau. It had a very large area, so large that even 10 football fields added up couldn't compare to this manor. The buildings here weren't modern and were all composed of antique pavilions and pavilions. From the outside, only some pavilions could be faintly seen inside. But in the dense forest, there were many antique pavilions. Except for the 3-storied pavilion in the middle, all the other pavilions were 2-storied. The 3-storied pavilion in the middle was a forbidden area of the floating snow chateau. Even the 8 2-storied pavilions around it were also forbidden areas of the floating snow chateau. Except for some people with special identities in the chateau, no outsider was allowed to set foot inside. Even Xue Mengdai, the deputy master of the chateau, needed to be notified if she wanted to enter. Night fell. A cold wind blew past, and 2 hazy silhouettes descended from the sky, instantly disappearing into the dense thicket. It was already early winter and the leaves on the trees in Zheng City were fluttering. Withered leaves could be seen everywhere, but the manor was full of spring with green trees. There were even colorful flowers blooming among the trees. Countless birds were wandering around, and all kinds of colorful butterflies were fluttering. Interesting. In the woods, Tang Xiu observed the surrounding environment as a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Gu Xiaoxue smiled and said, "This place has obviously been transformed by an array, Grand Master. We should be inside the array now. If you don't want to alarm anyone, you'll have to put in some effort." Tan Xiu's expression shifted as he shook his head and said, "We've been discovered. Many people are already rushing in our direction. It seems that once someone enters this array, they will be noticed by the people monitoring this array. Since that's the case, there's no need for us to look for it ourselves. Saying, he took out a zither from his space ring. This zither was given to him by Gu Yen. It was carved entirely from warm jade, and its strings were forged from the tendons of a serpent dragon. It could be said that this zither was a very impressive magic tool. Suddenly, a tea table and a small stool appeared in front of Tan Xiu. As Tan Xiu took a seat, he placed the zither on the tea table in front of him and his fingers instantly stroked the strings. Ding, ding, notes flowed like a stream of water from Tan Xiu's fingertips. The melody of the greeting invitation demonic tune was very pleasing to the ear. At this moment, hundreds of people in the floating snow chateau all looked at Tan Xiu's direction, and many people who were proficient in music looked surprised. Inside the three-storied attic, Xue Wuhan sat cross-legged on a praying mat and closed her eyes in cultivation. There were 8 pieces of chalcedony arranged according to the 5 elements and 8 trigrams array around her. It was somewhat similar to a spirit amassing array in that it could also gather the world's energy from all directions, resulting in a very high concentration of the world's energy here. The sound of the zither sounded and the veiled Xue Wuhan instantly opened her eyes. Her graceful figure appeared at the window, and her eyes seemed to be able to see through the dark barrier and see the person playing the zither in the dense forest array. What's this zither sound? A figure silently appeared next to Xue Wuhan, her beautiful eyes also looking in the direction of the forest. Xue Wuhan slightly tilted her head and said, "This man has a very high attainment in music, at least much higher than me. His zither skills have almost reached the pinnacle. I've only heard it from you before, but no one else can compare to him." Alas! Han Qingwu sighed faintly and said, "Just go. He didn't come here for me. I'm afraid the one he's looking for is you." "You know who he is?" asked Xue Wuhan in surprise. "Apart from him, there's absolutely no one else in the world who has such zither skills," said Han Qingwu. "Wuhan, remember my words. You must try your best to agree to whatever he wants. You'd better be respectful in front of him and don't make him unhappy." Xue Wuhan was slightly startled and incredulously asked, "Daoist Han, is he very terrifying? What's his identity?" "You'll know his identity later," said Han Qingwu with a forced smile. "But I can't tell you whether he's terrifying or not. I can only tell you that his strength is not below mine." "I understand." Xue Wuhan slowly nodded. "But I'm curious. Since you know each other and met in my floating snow chateau, why don't you go see him?" "I've been dreaming to see him, but I'm afraid he'll never want to see me," said Han Qingwu faintly. "Since he doesn't want to see me, why should I go there and make him unhappy?" Xue Wuhan instantly realized that Han Qingwu had a very special relationship with the zither player. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a problem for Han Qingwu to see anyone she wanted given her terrifying strength. Whoosh! A beautiful figure flashed, and in just a few breaths, Xue Wuhan appeared in the dense forest array. Her eyes instantly fell on Tan Xiu, who was playing the zither. She immediately recognized Tan Xiu's identity. Back in the Himalayas, she had disguised herself and participated in the siege operation against demonic beasts. She had seen Tan Xiu's elegant demeanor at that time. She had always been a proud and arrogant woman, yet she couldn't help but be secretly tempted after meeting Tan Xiu. Unfortunately, she had sent some people to investigate Tan Xiu and learned that Tan Xiu had a lot of female friends. Therefore, she could only secretly feel regretful and cut off the throbbing in her heart. After a while, her eyes fell on Gu Xiaoxue. Even though she was a woman, she still felt a bit stunned. The song ended. Tan Xiu slowly looked up. As his eyes swept over the barefooted woman in front of him, the zither, the tea table, and the stool were instantly put into his interspatial ring. He cupped his fists and said, "Please forgive me for taking the liberty to visit." "It's my honor to have Daoist Tang here," said Xue Wuhan with a smile. "Do you know me?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. "It's been a while since we last met in the Himalayas." Xue Wuhan nodded. "But Daoist Tang's graceful bearing has always lingered in my mind." Tan Xiu tried his best to recall, but he couldn't recall seeing the floating snow chateau's master in the Himalayas. He secretly shook his head and said, "You must be joking, Chateau Master Shui. I really didn't expect that there would be a place like the floating snow chateau here. May I know which sect or school Chateau Master Shui belongs to?" "I don't belong to any sect or school." Shui Wuhan shook her head and said, "My family inheritance has been passed down to me for 12 generations. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "A small hermit hides in the mountains while a big hermit hides in the city. It seems that Chateau Master Shui is a very powerful figure. Even this array you arranged is quite extraordinary." "Please don't praise me, Taoist Tang." Shui Wuhan forced a wry smile and said, "I felt ashamed when I saw the array you arranged in the Himalayas. I think if you want to, I'm afraid that you can destroy my array in an instant." Tan Xiu let out an indifferent smile and didn't deny it. Instead, he asked, "Are you really a rogue cultivator, Chateau Master Shui?" "That's right." Shui Wuhan nodded. "Do you have any relationship with other cultivation sects or other forces?" asked Tan Xiu again. "I don't like to show my face in public and hate troublesome things." Shui Wuhan shook his head. "Especially in the last few decades, I've hardly paid attention to the worldly affairs and have only left the manor twice. Hence, I don't have any relationship with other forces." "That's great." Tan Xiu nodded. "May I know what orders do you have for me, Taoist Tang?" asked Shui Wuhan. "I don't have any orders. I just want to discuss a deal with you." "I won't let you suffer a loss if you agree," said Tan Xiu with a light smile. "What kind of deal?" asked Shui Wuhan. "A cultivation art that can allow one to cultivate to the immortal stage, a batch of pills that have a great effect on cultivators, and an immortal sword. I want to make Manor Lord Shui mine," said Tang Xiu. "What do you think?" Shui Wuhan's eyes glinted and he shot a deep look at Tan Xiu. Then he said, "No wonder someone told me not to be enemies with Taoist Tang. He also told me to try my best to satisfy your needs no matter what. It seems that Taoist Tang is much more terrifying than I thought. Do you agree to it or not?" asked Tan Xiu. "To be honest, Taoist Tang's conditions are very tempting," said Shui Wuhan. "Even I, a cultivator who has just barely broken through to the golden core stage, can't help but be tempted. It's just that I don't like to be constrained, so please forgive me, Taoist Tang. Everyone has their own aspirations, so I won't force you." Tan Xiu nodded. "It's a pity that I have a way to help you ascend and become an immortal, but you didn't accept it." Shui Wuhan shook his head and said, "It's not that easy to ascend and become an immortal. Taoist Tang has yet to ascend and become an immortal, no? I, Tan Xiu, don't like to boast." Tan Xiu smilingly said, "I wouldn't have said it if I didn't have the confidence to help you become an immortal. If you follow me, your future stage won't just be on Earth. If you refuse, you'll have to rely on your own efforts to go further in the future." Chapter 1126. Shui Wuhan slightly furrowed her brows and looked a bit hesitant. However, she recalled Han Qingwu's arrival a few days ago and shook her head. "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Taoist Tang even if I can become an immortal. Compared to becoming an immortal, I prefer freedom." "That's understandable." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I myself also advocate freedom. Since you can't be of use to me, then forget it. It's just that there's something I hope Chateau Master Shui can agree to." "Please tell me," said Shui Wuhan. "You don't have any intention to work hard outside, so your floating snow chateau's affairs in the outside world can be temporarily put to rest," said Tan Xiu. "You can continue with your business, but your floating snow chateau's intelligence network is no longer to be carried out." Shui Wuhan didn't really care about this matter, so she directly nodded and said, "I'll follow Taoist Tang's instructions. I can directly give it to you if you need my floating snow chateau's intelligence network. My people will disappear, and all the intelligence personnel will be controlled by fellow Taoist Tang's people." "No need." Tan Xiu shook his head. At the side, a 7-colored butterfly suddenly flew from a distance and landed on Gu Xiaoshue's shoulder. A strange expression appeared on her face as Tan Xiu spoke. She then sent a voice transmission, "There's an old friend of yours in the floating snow chateau, Grand Master." "Who is it?" asked Tan Xiu via voice transmission. Han Qingwu. She's in that 3-storied pavilion, answered Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiao furrowed his brows and directly cupped his fists toward Xue Wuhan. Since Chateau Master Xue has found a follower, then this Tang won't stay any longer. Farewell. Having said that, he quickly cast a seal and a lightning bolt blasted the array. He then soared into the sky with Gu Xiaoxue and disappeared into the woods. A glint flashed in Xue Wuhan's eyes. She wasn't surprised that Tan Xiao easily blasted her array, but it was beyond her expectation that Tan Xiao knew about Han Qingwu's existence. After a while, when Xue Wuhan returned to the 3-storied attic, he looked at Han Qingwu, who was looking at the sky, and said, "He seems to know that you're here. Moreover, he seems to be very dissatisfied with me, thinking that I lied to him before." What? Han Qingwu's heart tightened as she quickly asked. Xue Wuhan said, "He asked me if I've submitted to other forces, but I told him no. In the end, he seemed to have discovered you, so he was dissatisfied." Han Qingwu's heart ached. Since he had discovered her, he didn't even want to look at her and left in a hurry. Was he really avoiding her? Xue Wuhan looked at Han Qingwu, who had a slightly pale expression on her face, and asked with concern, "Are you all right, fellow Taoist Han?" Han Qingwu bit her lower lip and shook her head. "I'm fine." "Why did he come here?" Xue Wuhan said, "He wants me to pledge allegiance to him and he even offered me huge benefits. But I refused." Han Qingwu suddenly turned around and stared at Xue Wuhan with a complicated expression in her eyes. Then she enunciated each word clearly, "I won't feel sorry for you even if you refuse everyone in the world. But rejecting him is the stupidest thing you've ever done in your life. Do you know that he didn't even bother to look at so many people who wanted to follow him?" Xue Wuhan's expression changed and she asked back, "Taoist Han, you said that you're not as strong as him. Then, would you be willing to follow him if he asked you to?" Han Qingwu fell into silence. She came back to her senses and looked at the dark night outside the window with bitterness churning inside her heart. After a long time, she bitterly said, "Not to mention following him, even becoming a slave or a maid is something I don't even dare to dream of. Even if I could see him from afar, I would still feel." Xue Wuhan's pupils shrunk and regret surged inside her heart. However, she then recalled that she still had Han Qingwu with her, so she shook her head and said, "It's my honor to be able to follow you in cultivation and receive your guidance. I don't dare to hope for anything higher." "You still don't get it?" Han Qingwu sighed. What about him?" asked Xue Wuhan. "He's already started his plan. It won't be long before he leaves this place," said Han Qingwu. "I'll also leave this place after he leaves. I'm afraid we won't be able to see each other again at that time." "Where are you going, Taoist Han?" asked Xue Wuhan hurriedly. "Where is he going?" Han Qingwu shook her head and said, "There are some things you don't need to ask about. I can't tell you even if you're eager to know it. He still has a lot of important things to do, so I can't reveal any of his plans." Xue Wuhan fell into silence for a while and then slowly asked, "Do you like him?" Han Qingwu turned around again and her eyes fell on Xue Wuhan's veil. She shook her head and said, "Liking him is not enough to describe my feelings for him. Unforgettable love should be more accurate, right? Forget it, I'm tired. I'm going to rest first." After saying that, Han Qingwu disappeared into thin air. Unforgettable and unforgettable love? Xue Wuhan was shaken inwardly. She really couldn't imagine that a peerless beauty like Han Qingwu and a terrifying power like Han Qingwu actually didn't dare to approach him. What exactly happened between them? So much so that Han Qingwu hid her unforgettable and unforgettable love in her heart and didn't dare to approach him? Hold on, Xue Wuhan suddenly recalled something. Tan Xiao said before that he could help her reach the Tao and become an immortal. Could it be that when Han Qingwu said that she would leave, she meant that Tan Xiao would ascend to the immortal world? In the air, Tan Xiao and Gu Xiaoxue flew side by side. There was a bit of regret on his face, but it was more of a resolute look. Since Xue Wuhan and Han Qingwu had a relationship, he didn't want to have anything to do with Xue Wuhan anymore. "What shall we do next, Grand Master?" asked Gu Xiaoxue in a soft voice. "The purpose of coming to the floating snow chateau this time has not been achieved," sighed Tan Xiao. We can only take a step back and look for other families. The Zhu family, it's very likely that they have a deep relationship with a family in the imperial capital since they can become the first family in He province. Unless Zhu Xinghe can give up that family, he won't be able to become one of us. Your analysis is correct, Grand Master. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. But I think we can give it a try. They're the first family in He province after all, and I'm sure they have deep roots here. We can save a lot of effort if we can make use of them. Tan Xiao gave it a thought and felt that what Gu Xiaoxue said made sense. Being able to develop in a province meant that they probably had a lot of connections with the imperial capital. But if he could make use of them and make them sincerely submit to him, not only would he be able to save a lot of financial and material resources, but it could also produce an unexpected effect. Let's go see Zhu Xinghe again then. At the Zhu family's manor. Zhu Xinghe was still staying in his room, but he didn't read a book. Instead, he quietly looked at the scene outside the window and pondered about something. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly because he clearly saw two figures dashing over from the sky not far away. Moreover, in a short span of 1 or 2 seconds, they appeared in front of him. You too, a talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. Zhu Xinghe looked at the man and woman in front of him, and these two idioms emerged in his mind. Tan Xiao and Gu Xiaoxue instantly entered the room and appeared behind Zhu Xinghe. Tan Xiao pulled a chair and sat down, saying with a smile, Zhu family, you're really forgetful, aren't you? We just met yesterday, but I didn't expect you to forget about me today. Zhu Xinghe was shaken inwardly. He turned to look at Tan Xiao's handsome face and murmured, It turns out that the one yesterday is you, Tan Xiao. I didn't expect Patriarch Zhu to know me. What an honor. Tan Xiao smiled. Zhu Xinghe hurriedly saluted and said, Your name is well known by everyone, Mr. Tang. Your appearance has long been deeply engraved in my mind, so it's natural for me to recognize you easily. Tan Xiao smiled and said, If that's the case, then our following conversation will be much more relaxed. You should know that I'm the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation. You should also know that I'm known as the Young Divine Doctor. You should also know that I'm the descendant of the Tang family in the imperial capital. Zhu Xinghe said, I know everything. Tan Xiao smiled and said, But I still don't know which family in the capital is closer to your Zhu family. Zhu Xinghe's expression slightly changed. Countless thoughts churned in his mind as he respectfully replied, The imperial capital's by family. Tan Xiao raised his eyebrows and said with a faint smile, So it's by Tao's family. Patriarch Zhu, I have a question for you. If I ask you to give up some cooperation with the Bai family and switch to my Tang family, would you be willing? Mr. Tang, my Zhu family will suffer a great loss if I really do that. Zhu Xinghe forced a smile. I'm afraid that the Bai family won't be able to tolerate my Zhu family anymore. What if I can help you solve these problems? Tan Xiao lightly smiled. It's naturally not a problem if Mr. Tang can help you solve them, said Zhu Xinghe seriously. Who doesn't know that the Tang family is the most powerful family in China nowadays? It's definitely a blessing for our Zhu family to have a good relationship with them. Tan Xiao took out a book and threw it to Zhu Xinghe, saying, I won't be stingy since you're willing to be my man. This is a cultivation art. I'll also give you a bottle of medicinal pills. With your current strength, coupled with the effects of the cultivation art and medicinal pills, you can definitely reach the qi refining stage in a short time. As long as you're loyal to me and continue to complete the tasks I give you, you'll be able to get more rewards and a higher level cultivation art. Cultivation art? Cultivator? Zhu Xinghe had always dreamed of becoming a cultivator, especially after witnessing Xue Wuhan's strength. It made him even more eager to obtain a cultivation art. Unfortunately, there were only a few cultivators in China. He still couldn't obtain a cultivation art despite paying a huge price and couldn't become a real cultivator. At this moment, his dream was about to come true, which made him very excited. Chapter 1127. Tan Xiao calmly watched Zhu Xinghe. He knew how tempting cultivation techniques and medicinal pills were to ordinary people. Many people didn't dare to imagine becoming an immortal, But having the power to overturn the clouds and rain was the goal pursued by countless martial artists. The most important thing was the lifespan of cultivators. Given Zhu Xinghe's status, he definitely knew some rumors about cultivators. The higher one's cultivation, the longer one's lifespan. For those who held great power to kill, the more things they had, the more they were afraid of death. Tan Xiu felt that even if Zhu Xinghe knew about this matter, he still decided to remind him to let him know how big of an opportunity and fortune he had given him. Zhu Xinghe, the cultivation technique I gave you can make your cultivation break through to the peak of qi refining. The transformation of true qi into true essence was a qualitative change that could even increase one's lifespan. Once your cultivation reaches the peak of qi refining, you'll be able to live to at least 100 years old. Above the qi refining stage is the foundation establishment stage. Cultivators at the late stage of foundation establishment can live to at least 300 years old. Tang, do you have any cultivation technique up to the late stage of foundation establishment? Asked Zhu Xinghe hurriedly. Just call me boss later, Tan Xiu lightly said. Not only do I have cultivation techniques up to the late stage of foundation establishment, but I also have cultivation techniques up to the golden core, nascent soul, and even higher levels. As long as you're loyal to me and complete the task I've given you, you'll be able to get the follow-up cultivation techniques one after another. Zhu Xinghe looked a bit excited and resolutely said, I'll be loyal to you and perfectly complete the task you've given me. Tan Xiu smiled and lightly said, Don't you want to know what I'm going to ask you to do? I'll do whatever you ask me to do, said Zhu Xinghe in a deep voice. You're indeed worthy to be the patriarch of a family, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Your wisdom is indeed incomparable to ordinary people. In actuality, the task I'm giving you is very simple. You'll be the chief supervisor of the Tang Sect's intelligence department in He Province. The chief supervisor of the entire intelligence department will come to see you later. You only need to report to him when the time comes. Zhu Xinghe exclaimed, Information? You want me to only do intelligence work? With a solemn expression, Tan Xiu said in a deep voice, The entire country will be weaved into a complete intelligence network, and you'll be the node in this hub of He Province. You'll be in charge of the information there. In other provinces and regions, there are also intelligence officers with the same status as you. In the future, if the information is related to other regions, there will naturally be people contacting you to exchange information, reorganize, investigate, and complete the information. Zhu Xinghe's expression became serious, and he even looked at Tan Xiu with shock in his eyes. He was the head of the Zhu family, and the Zhu family was the #1 family in He Province. And as the head of the #1 family, he could only be a node in the intelligence network, a small person in charge of intelligence. In that case, did the other provinces and other regions also have people in charge of intelligence like him? If the identities of these people in charge of intelligence were comparable to his, then wouldn't the overall power of the person in charge of this intelligence network be too terrifying? Could it be that Tan Xiu wanted to control this country? Tan Xiu could guess Zhu Xinghe's thoughts, so he indifferently said, I don't have any ambition, nor will I have any ideas about my own country. Just a small country like China is not worth it for me to go to war. Once the overall intelligence network in China is completely established, the next step will be to lay out the intelligence network in every corner of the world. This intelligence network will cover the whole world and replace the world's #1 intelligence organization, the Dark Wind, who will only serve the Tang sect. You've already obtained a cultivation art, so you'll be an outer member of the Tang sect. You'll be recruited as an outer disciple if you make great contributions in the future. Outer disciple? Since there are outer disciples, then there must be inner disciples as well. I'm afraid that there are many people with higher authority above the inner disciples. Just how much power does this Tang sect have? Zhu Xinghe's heart was filled with turbulent waves. Tan Xiu no longer paid attention to Zhu Xinghe's other thoughts and lightly said, I've said everything I need to say. Someone will contact you later. How far you can go in the future will depend on your own efforts. Having said that, Tan Xiu turned around and was about to leave. Zhu Xinghe hurriedly said, Boss, I have one last question. How many achievements should I make to be eligible to become an outer disciple of the Tang sect? Every 3 years, the inner disciples of the Tang sect will come out to count the merits of each province's person in charge, Tan Xiu lightly said. The top 3 will have the opportunity to become outer disciples. That's right, I forgot to tell you something. You may have obtained the cultivation art, but you must never impart it to anyone, not even your close relatives. If you want to impart it to others, it'll depend on your contributions in the future. The greater the contribution, the greater the chance of imparting it to others, and the more people you can impart it to. I understand. Zhu Xinghe respectfully cupped his fists. Contributions. He knew that this was the only foundation for him to climb higher, to become stronger, and to live closer and closer to his goal. Facing the mysterious and huge Tang sect, he suddenly found that his heart was full of vigor and a strong drive. This drive seemed to have disappeared more than 20 years ago. In the following days, Tan Xiu kept running around outside, so much so that he didn't have time to attend Ji Mu's wedding. 2 months later, he kept unearthing officials and businessmen with good characters and a clear background. He pulled them under the banner of the Tang sect and made them part of the sect's intelligence network. Imperial Capital, Magic City, and Shin City. In the 3 first-tier cities, Tan Xiu selected 2 people in charge at the same time and divided them into 2 lines to carry out intelligence work at the same time. Including their deputies, there were a total of 4 lines. He then crazily expanded the number of intelligence personnel selected by Jinshi. Finally, the embryonic form of a huge intelligence network had been compiled. Afterward, Tan Xiu stayed in Magic City for more than 10 days before he hurried to 9 Dragons Island to cultivate in seclusion. After some time of cultivation, he finally encountered a bottleneck. It was not because his realm was not high enough, but because he needed to absorb a huge amount of various energies. It was not easy to break through the bottleneck in a short time in the world outside 9 Dragons Island. For 7 days after returning to 9 Dragons Island, Tan Xiu devoted himself to cultivation. He also spent a lot of effort to arrange a special feng shui array to connect the 9 spirit springs. Violet Qi comes from the east. Using the violet Qi to temper his physique and integrate it into the primal chaos force in his body, the amount of primal chaos force in Tan Xiu's body kept increasing. Even the size of the first planet had reached 5 meters in diameter. Almost there. Sitting cross-legged in the courtyard, Tan Xiu looked up at the thick dark clouds surging in the sky with lightning bolts constantly flashing. A firm look flashed in his eyes. As he continuously extracted the massive primal chaos force from the first planet and crazily instilled it into his meridians, the massive amount of primal chaos force began to break through the bottleneck. At the same time, in a star field in the vast universe, countless planets emitted bright lights at the same time. This star field was unlike the other universes, which were full of dead planets. More than 80% of the planets in this star field were inhabited by countless living beings, and each planet had life and nurtured countless creatures. At this moment, hundreds of millions of creatures were shocked by the light emitted by the entire planet. Some creatures with great divine power even rushed into the vast universe to find the reason why the planet was lit up. However, none of the creatures with great divine power could find the reason. They had been continuously releasing their divine sense, but they still couldn't see the end of the light even though it had already crossed tens of millions of light years. Boom! Tan Xiu didn't know how long had passed, but his body suddenly trembled. The loud rumbling sound was like a thunderstorm, making him feel dizzy. However, this feeling only existed in the blink of an eye and directly disappeared. What replaced it was a special feeling. Tan Xiu opened his eyes. He found that he could only see the scene 5 to 6 kilometers away, but now he could see the scene 20 kilometers away. His divine sense, which could only cover a range of 400 to 500 meters, could now completely cover the surrounding 2 kilometers. Spirit Technique, Starquake. A mysterious celestial essence spirit technique appeared in Tan Xiu's mind. Even though Tan Xiu once had the identity of a supreme, this celestial essence spirit technique still shook him a few times. It was omnipresent and omnipotent. The magnitude of the quake could be spread out, which could be used for both defense and attack. With the accumulation of layers upon layers of the quake, under the eruption of one's strength, one could increase one's defense and attack power countless times over. Whoosh! Tan Xiu's figure rushed into the sky and appeared 100 meters in the air in an instant. As he stood in the air, his eyes fell on a stone lion a few hundred meters away. With a flick of his finger, a vibrating force instantly spread out. Although the transmission seemed slow, it was extremely fast. In less than 1,000th of a second, the vibrating force reached the head of the stone lion. Bang! The head of the stone lion suddenly exploded, and gravel scattered within a radius of dozens of meters. If I go all out and use the Starquake Spirit technique to attack, even if it's a kilometer away, a boulder weighing tens of thousands of pounds would most likely shatter into pieces. Moreover, this kind of vibration, if used on a weapon, would increase its power by several times. Tan Xiu showed a smile as he watched more than a dozen lightning-fast figures appear near the shattered stone lion. When they looked up and saw Tan Xiu in the sky, they immediately saluted and quickly cleaned up the gravel. Suddenly, a figure appeared next to Tan Xiu out of thin air. Gu Yan asked with a smile, "Master, did your cultivation improve again? Did you reach the second level of the star heavenly essence?" Chapter 11:28. That's right. Tan Xiu nodded slowly. I've broken through to the second stage of the star heavenly essence. But I didn't expect that my strength would soar so much after the breakthrough. Now, I'm confident that I can kill a late-stage spirit-severing expert. Gu Yenner's eyes lit up and she immediately said with a smile, "With your cultivation speed, it won't take long for you to complete the 9th stage of the star heavenly essence and reach a higher level, Master. Do you think you'll be comparable to a transcending tribulation expert at that time?" If my guess is correct, I should be comparable to a transcending tribulation expert. Tan Xiu nodded. I even have a vague feeling that the benefits I'll get once I complete the 9th stage of the star heavenly essence will be more than this. That's right. How are your injuries? They're much better now. Gu Yan replied with a smile. I'll be fully healed in 2 years at most. Tan Xiu nodded. You still need to find some heavenly treasures, preferably precious herbs that can help with your injuries. Yan, Shuiyu has been cultivating with you recently. How's her situation? Very good. Gu Yan nodded. She's now at the late stage of the spirit-severing stage and her realm is very stable. I don't know why, but her state of mind is improving faster than her cultivation. As long as she can absorb a lot of energy, she'll be able to directly cross the spirit-severing stage and become a body integration stage expert. Very good. Then let her continue to cultivate with you. Tan Xiu said. If she can break through to the Great Ascension stage when I break through to the 9th stage of the Star Heavenly Essence, she'll definitely be a great help to me in the future. Also, how's Chen Zhizhong? His situation is a bit strange. Gu Yan forced a smile. His memory has returned, but his cultivation hasn't. Instead, it regressed after he cultivated hard. He's now only at the early stage of foundation establishment. What? A surprised expression appeared on Tang Xiu's face. I don't know the specific reason, Gu Yan said. Old Ji and I checked his body many times, but we didn't find anything abnormal. But his cultivation is still regressing. If it wasn't for his diligence, I'm afraid he wouldn't even be able to maintain his foundation establishment stage. Tan Xiu asked, where is he now? Gu Yan said, a few days ago, there was news from outside that his son was beaten up in Star City. Moreover, his injuries are quite serious, so he has rushed back to China. He should be in Star City now. Tan Xiu frowned and asked, what's going on? Gu Yan said, I don't know the specific reason. He only knew that his son was scammed by the other party because he wanted to buy something. As a result, there was a conflict, and his son was severely injured. It was said that he was still in a coma. However, Junior sister is already treating his son, so there shouldn't be any big problems. Dai Xinue? Tan Xiu asked with a surprised expression. That's right, Xinue. Gu Yan chuckled. Junior sister's medical skills have improved by leaps and bounds in the past year. I heard that she's very famous in Star City. Even some patients from other places come to Star City to look for her, hoping that she can treat them. Xiao Xue said some time ago that 4 Grandmaster Chinese medical doctors appeared in Star City at the same time and asked her for advice on medical skills. As a result, she shocked those 4 Grandmaster Chinese medical doctors, making them think that Junior Sister will be the most outstanding person in the Chinese medical field in the future. One of them even said that Junior Sister is likely to succeed you and become the new divine doctor. Tan Xiu didn't feel happy after hearing it. Instead, he silently shook his head and sighed. She does have some achievements in Chinese medical, but she pays too much attention to the study and research of Chinese medical, which will inevitably affect her cultivation. If my guess is correct, her current cultivation is not high, right? It seems to be at the early stage of foundation establishment. Gu Yen nodded. Did you send her a lot of cultivation resources? Asked Tan Xiu. She's my junior sister after all. Gu Yen chuckled. It's only right that I send her some cultivation resources. It's just a pity that I haven't had a good chat with her until now. Don't worry. You'll have the chance later, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Whoosh! A figure flashed lightning fast like an arrow from the distance and stood in front of Tan Xiu and Gu Yen in just a few breaths. Master, Grandmaster. After saluting them, Gu Xiaoxue said, I just got the news from Japan that Kawako Yamamoto is asking for help. I've sent our people in the vicinity of Japan to rush over there, but those there are only outer disciples, so they won't be of much help. What happened? Asked Tan Xiu with a changed expression. Kawako Yamamoto successfully became the patriarch of the Yamamoto clan more than a month ago, said Gu Xiaoxue. Just as she was about to eradicate the last obstacle of the North Star One-Blade School, dozens of ninjutsu experts suddenly appeared around that person. 2 of them are even stronger than Kawako Yamamoto. Where's Tang Guang now? Asked Tan Xiu in a deep voice. He's in Japan, but he's also injured. He's resisting those powerful enemies with Kawako Yamamoto, answered Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiu's fingers moved and a seal was cast. In just a few breaths, Ji Qimei appeared in front of Tan Xiu and the others. Venerable Lord. Ji Qimei respectfully saluted. Yen is injured. Escort us to Japan, said Tan Xiu. Ji Qimei's expression moved and she slightly nodded. Soon after, 4 figures quickly appeared in front of Tan Xiu's group. They were Mo, Shuesha, He Xiong, and He Weia, who had just broken through to the Golden Core stage. Let's go, said Tan Xiu indifferently. Ji Qimei slightly nodded in response. She released a burst of energy that instantly wrapped around Tang Xiu and the rest. Before she left, her finger pointed to a spot not far away and then flew toward Japan's direction like a meteor. 2 minutes passed. Ji Qimei, along with Tan Xiu's group, appeared in the sky above Japan. Her overwhelming spiritual sense shrouded the entire country and quickly found Kawako and Tang Guang in a manner. Who are you? Figures flickered lightning fast and rushed out of the manor's square. More than a dozen of them were Tang's sect's outer disciples, so they immediately looked respectful after seeing who they were. Tan Xiu glanced at the direction where Ji Qimei went and sighed inwardly. The heavenly Tao laws in this world were so powerful that Ji Qimei could only exert less than 1% of its power. This was also the reason why it took her 2 minutes to bring them to Japan. Grand Master. Boss. Tang Guang and Kawako, who were covered with wounds and bandaged, quickly appeared in front of Tan Xiu. They secretly breathed a sigh of relief when they saw Tan Xiu, Mo, and the others. Tan Xiu nodded and said, Let's find a place where we can talk. Lead the way. Please follow me, boss, said Kawako respectfully. Inside a 2-story building. Kawako waited for Tan Xiu to take a seat before she personally brewed tea and brought it to Tan Xiu's side. I didn't expect you to come so fast, Sect Master. We thought we would have to stay here for a few more days. Tell me about the situation here, said Tan Xiu. I've successfully become the Yamamoto family's patriarch and the North Star One-Blade School's deputy sect master, said Kawako. Originally, I could have taken over the position of sect master 2 days ago, But the great elder of the North Star One-Blade School, Osashi Kitajishi, suddenly made things difficult for me. A group of mysterious experts appeared beside him, 10 of whom were comparable to Golden Core stage experts. The other 2 old men were even more powerful. Fortunately, Elder Tang Guang was there, otherwise, I'm afraid I would have died in their hands. How strong are they? Tan Xiu looked at Tang Guang and asked. Tang Guang pondered for a moment and slowly said, I haven't broken through to the nascent soul stage yet, so I don't know how strong nascent soul stage experts are. But those 2 are absolutely capable of suppressing a late-stage Golden Core expert. The injuries on me and Kawako's bodies were caused by them. But what? Asked Tan Xiu with a frown. That Osashi Kitajishi has yet to act, but I suspect he's even stronger since he can command so many experts, said Tang Guang with a solemn expression. Maybe he really has the strength of a nascent soul stage expert. Tan Xiu shifted his gaze back to Kawako and asked, I want to know about this Osashi Kitajishi's past. Osashi Kitajishi was originally a training instructor of the North Star One-Blade School, said Kawako. But he was promoted because he made great contributions to the North Star One-Blade School in a special mission. Ever since he became the Grand Elder, he has shown great talent. He was appointed as the Grand Elder and was fortunate enough to enter the Elder Cabinet because he kept creating benefits for the North Star One-Blade School. However, according to my understanding of him, it's impossible for him to have a very strong strength even if he entered the Elder Cabinet, let alone having so many experts around him. In fact, I also have some suspicions about him. What do you suspect? Asked Tan Xiu. I suspect that the North Star One-Blade School's background is not as simple as what I've seen, said Kawako. Although I don't know who those experts around Osashi Kitajishi are, I suspect that they are also from the North Star One-Blade School and are secretly trained experts. You mean, there are people from the North Star One-Blade School who don't want you to become the sect master? Tan Xiu frowned. That's right, said Kawako in a low voice. The reason I got the opportunity to become the sect master was mainly because I controlled the current sect master and forced him to submit to me. A forcibly picked melon won't be sweet. Tan Xiu sighed and asked, So, where is the sect master of the North Star One-Blade School now? He's missing. Kawako shook her head and said, Even though I control his life and death and have a special connection with him, I don't know what method he used to block my perception of him, so I don't know where he is now. Chapter 1129. She's missing? A look of surprise flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes. It must be noted that the sole ruling art he taught Kawako was a very powerful secret art, yet someone in this world was able to block it? Could it be that there was someone with great magical power in Japan? Tan Xiu looked at Kawako with a hesitant expression. In fact, he could find someone who was controlled by Kawako's soul-controlling art. But that secret art required her blood essence. Once Kawako's origin blood essence was extracted, it would harm her greatly and even affect her cultivation. He weighed the pros and cons. Tan Xiu finally gave up the idea and slowly asked, Where's Osashi Kitajishi now? According to the secret report I got, he brought those experts with him to a station a few kilometers away, said Kawako respectfully. The surroundings of the manor were already filled with experts from the North Star One-Blade School. Although a third of those experts were under my control and 4/5 of them obeyed my orders, the North Star One-Blade School's experts were still under my control. However, I don't dare to expose them so easily. You did the right thing. Tan Xiu nodded and said, If the other party only has Osashi Kitajishi, we can gather all our forces to deal with him. Even if he's powerful, we can still kill him with numbers. But he has a lot of experts around him. If we use manpower with a huge disparity in strength, it will only ruin our efforts for a long time, and it may not be effective. He got up. Tan Xiu grinned and said, I recently had a slight breakthrough in my cultivation, so I was wondering who could be my sparring partner. I didn't expect that an expert would suddenly pop up. Kawako, take us to meet him. I want to know the strength of this Osashi Kitajishi and his men. Understood. Kawako had long known that Tan Xiu was powerful. Now that he had a breakthrough in his cultivation, wouldn't he be even stronger than before? With him personally taking action, even if Osashi Kitajishi and his men were quite strong, they would still be no match for the sect master. Xiaofeng. The famous entertainment club in Shinjuku was a place that countless people yearned for and despised. Every customer with money would be able to find the entertainment they needed here. It was an absolute one-stop service. As usual, this place was definitely full of guests and business was booming. However, at this moment, there were no men who came out to seek pleasure, nor were there any women who came out to have fun. Even the waiters here were nowhere to be seen. Only men dressed in black suits and carrying cold weapons were coldly stationed at the corners of each road, sealing off the entire Xiaofeng. In the innermost area, in a classical pavilion with richly ornamented beams and painted rafters, Osashi Kitajishi held a bronze wine glass in front of a table by the window on the second floor. He did not drink the wine in the glass but stared at the emerald ring on his thumb in a daze. In front of him was a dignified, graceful, and well-mannered woman who was looking at the distant horizon with a faint smile. The direction she was looking at was the manor where Kawako and the others were hiding. Palace Master has been in a bad mood recently. Suddenly, the woman turned around and smiled at Osashi Kitajishi. Osashi Kitajishi came back to his senses and frowned. Palace Master indulges in debauchery every night, leading a befuddled life. Don't tell me the beauties I sent him can't make him happy? How do those beauties you sent him compare to Kawako Yamamoto? The woman chuckled. Osashi Kitajishi stared blankly for a moment before he shook his head and forced a smile. There's still a slight gap. It's said that each place has its own people. Kawako Yamamoto was once the daughter of the most beautiful woman in Japan, so she's definitely better. It's just a pity that I've sent people to look for women between the ages of 16 and 26 in Kyoto, yet none of them can be compared to her. Do you really think that Palace Master is unhappy because we didn't bring Kawako Yamamoto to him? Asked the woman meaningfully. Osashi Kitajishi stared blankly and asked with a confused expression, "Is that not the case?" A mocking smile appeared on the woman's face as she replied unhurriedly, Kawako Yamamoto was originally a young woman of the Yamamoto family. Even in the North Star One-Blade School, she was barely one of the many training targets. She may have good potential, but there's still a long way to go if she wants to sit on the North Star One-Blade School's master seat. But what happened to her in just a year or two is much more interesting. Osashi Kitajishi silently nodded and said, I also noticed the situation. But I don't know what method she used to buy people's hearts and make a large number of experts pledge their allegiance to her. Such ability is simply terrifying. The North Star One-Blade School is just a force established by this palace master a few years ago, mainly to handle some matters that cannot be exposed to the light. I never thought that Kawako Yamamoto could climb to this level without going through the heart cleansing program. This is beyond the rules set by Palace Master. Suddenly, a look of surprise appeared on his cold face as he asked again, could it be? Palace Master wants to dig out Kawako's secrets? You're hopelessly stupid, aren't you? The woman sneered. Kawako Yamamoto has been growing up since she was a child, so you should know very well what she's capable of. According to her previous identity, she's not qualified to obtain the joyous divine power, so naturally, it's impossible for her to cultivate to this level. Furthermore, there's one more thing. Kawako is still a virgin. Even if she obtained the joyous divine power from other channels, it's impossible for her to cultivate it. This indicates that she has some secrets, and there may be some other cultivators behind her. Osashi Kitajishi's expression turned serious and he said in a deep voice, You're right. I did have my suspicions before, but I wasn't sure. Now that you've said it yourself, it coincides with my thoughts, so it seems that it's true. However, that manor is full of traps, and there's a group of mysterious experts around Kawako, so we won't be able to attack it in a short time. If we can't do it, then we'll just wait, said the woman lightly. The food reserves in that manor should be very little, and they won't be able to last long with so many people. We'll wait until they're too hungry to crawl, then we'll go in and clean them up. Osashi Kitajishi nodded and said, If they take the initiative to come out because of the lack of food, then it'll be easier for us to deal with them. Yuji, did you bring the 4 Vajra Guardians with you? The woman called Yuji nodded and smilingly said, "The 4 Vajra Guardians are my favorites all these years, so I naturally brought them with me. Even if Kawako and the others are very powerful now, they'll probably die once they're trapped inside the Vajra Fist Array's might." A jealous look flashed in Osashi Kitajishi's eyes as he slowly said, "Mayahara Master really dotes on you. He even taught you the Vajra Fist Array, one of the 10 major arrays. Yuji, if you can become Mayahara Master's favorite in the future and become the head of his harem, you must help me a lot." Yuji covered her mouth and chuckled. "You must be joking, Elder Kitajishi. Mayahara Master has so many beauties around him. Whether it's in terms of figure or face, many of them are far better than me. How could I be qualified to be the head of his harem?" Osashi Kitajishi squinted his eyes and smilingly said, "Looks, stature, and temperament are all secondary factors. What's truly powerful is wisdom. There are only a handful of people in the entire Joyous Palace who are better than you in terms of wisdom. In other words, you only have a few opponents. If you can get more help, then in the future." His words abruptly came to an abrupt halt because a fragrant breeze blew over and a beautiful figure appeared at the door. "What happened?" Yuji furrowed her brows and looked unhappy. She realized what Osashi Kitajishi wanted to say, but what he didn't say was what she wanted to hear. "Someone broke in, Yuji." "Who's it?" "Kawako Yamamoto." "What?" Yuji abruptly got up with a look of disbelief on her face. Never did she expect that Kawako Yamamoto would leave the manor and take the initiative to come here to die. At the same time, she also realized something. Kawako should have left the manor and someone should have reported to her. So how could she come here without receiving any report? A mole? A cold light flashed in Yuji's eyes as she looked at Osashi Kitajishi and said, "I have a bad hunch. Maybe the force behind Kawako has appeared." Also, given Kawako's wisdom, she wouldn't have left the manor on her own initiative if she didn't have full assurance, much less come to us. "You're right." Osashi Kitajishi got up and said, "But Kawako doesn't even know about your existence, let alone the group of experts you brought. She has external help, but don't tell me I don't. Let's get rid of her men and her external help today, then capture her and take her to the palace master to receive the reward." "I need to know what you didn't say just now," said Yuji in a deep voice. "I'll be happy to help you," said Osashi Kitajishi. Yuji looked satisfied and nodded. "If that's the case, then let's go see this Kawako Yamamoto and see if she's as powerful as the rumors say." Inside the Shao Boat's gate, in the spacious courtyard, Kawako, Tangguang, Heixiong, and Shueisha were crazily slaughtering Osashi Kitajishi's men. In just a minute, the entire courtyard was filled with rivers of blood. However, a total of 10 men and women were standing in the innermost area with weapons in their arms, calmly watching the massacre. It was as though the people being slaughtered were not their people. Bush, bush, bush. 9 figures flashed lightning fast from the distance and appeared in front of the 10 men in an instant. Osashi Kitajishi's brows tightly furrowed as he watched the last subordinate in the courtyard get stabbed in the heart and kicked away. A cold light flashed in his eyes as his eyes wandered around the people in the courtyard and finally locked on Tan Shio. "Who are you, mister? How dare you meddle in the affairs of our North Star One-Blade School?" Osashi Kitajishi ignored Kawako and asked coldly to Tan Shio instead. He realized that this bronze-masked man in front of him should be the big shot behind Kawako. Chapter 1130. Tan Shio, who was wearing a bronze mask, crossed his arms and didn't move. He was also observing Osashi Kitajishi's group. Through their auras, he could sense that they were all very powerful, especially the one who had spoken and the woman beside him. Bewitching incense? Tan Shio was a bit surprised. The fragrance exuded from the woman was very similar to the bewitching incense used by many rapists in the immortal world. Despite the distance between them, he could still smell it with his keen sense of smell. Kawako translated Osashi Kitajishi's words in English. "North Star One-Blade School?" A mocking look appeared in Tan Shio's eyes as he lightly said in fluent English, "I'm well aware of how much power the North Star One-Blade School has. The 5 Elements ninjutsu is indeed powerful, but the cultivation technique our members practice is trash. It's very difficult for them to cultivate to your level. If you want to know our origin, shouldn't you at least introduce yourself first? Osashi Kitajishi frowned and turned to look at Yuji next to him. Then he shook his head and said, "You need to show your strength if you want to know our identity. Otherwise, weaklings like you are not qualified to know." "Is that so?" Tan Shio clapped his hands and then fell into silence. Puff! Among the 10 men and women behind Osashi Kitajishi, a short and stout middle-aged man on the far right suddenly had his expression drastically changed. His pupils shrunk as his left arm was suddenly chopped off. The long sword that appeared out of thin air seemed to have its own sentience as it appeared out of thin air and disappeared all of a sudden. Only the severed arm and the spurting blood proved that it was an attack just now. "Aya!" The short and stout middle-aged man screamed and instantly covered the cut on his shoulder with his thick palm. Energy frantically surged inside his body and quickly blocked the spurting blood. The others looked horrified. Each and every one of them revealed a horrified expression as they vigilantly observed their surroundings, fearing that the strange attack would land on them. Even Yuji and Osashi Kitajishi, who were the strongest among them, were no exception. Tan Shio let out a faint smile and asked, "Is this guy with his arm chopped off an expert?" Osashi Kitajishi was nervous and said in a cold voice, "Of course he's an expert. Since an expert like him got his arm chopped off, doesn't it prove that we're very strong?" Tang Shio said, "Do I have the right to know your origins?" Osashi Kitajishi and Yuji exchanged glances and then slowly said, "You can seriously injure my subordinate in an instant. Even if it's a sneak attack, you do have some strength. Your Excellency, have you heard of Joyous Palace?" Tan Shio looked at the others. Everyone shook their heads. After a while, Kawako said in a low voice, "I've heard of the Joyous Palace before. Though I don't know much about it, I know that it's the most mysterious sect in Japan. The shadow of the Joyous Palace can be seen in the military, politics, and commerce." Tan Shio nodded slowly and looked at Osashi Kitajishi, saying, "I suddenly don't want to know which sect you belong to. Only death awaits those who make an enemy out of my people. If you are the only ones here today, then leave your lives behind." Kawako's eyes lit up. She immediately took out an item from her pocket and threw it into the sky, causing an explosion to echo in the air. Kawako, who had been forced to flee to the manor to save her life, had long been sullen. After releasing the signal, she was the first to rush toward Osashi Kitajishi. Tang Guang, He Xiong, Shui Sha, and even Mo, who had yet to act, instantly attacked. Tan Shio didn't rush to act. He watched Yuji retreat tens of meters in an instant and appear on the roof behind her. His eyes locked on her and gently hooked his finger when she looked at him. Then he sneered and said, "You're the strongest among all of you, aren't you? Come and fight me if you don't want to be a coward." Yuji couldn't sense Tan Shio's power, but she didn't dare to be careless and fiercely shouted, "For guardian deities, kill that brat." Immediately, 4 burly middle-aged men with bulging muscles appeared in front of Tan Shio in the blink of an eye. As they arranged the guardian deity fist array, each of them grinned as though Tan Shio was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered in their eyes. A Buddhist battle array? Tan Shio wore a strange expression. These 4 men were obviously the woman's men. They even had the woman's aura on them, indicating that they had just had sex with her not long ago. Furthermore, she also had the bewitching incense on her. What did this mean? That woman also had a deep relationship with Buddhism. Buddhism? A woman? Sex? Joyous Palace? Connecting the clues one by one, Tan Shio instantly realized that these people belonged to one of the Buddhist esoteric schools, the Joyous Sect. However, he didn't expect that the Joyous Sect would become the most mysterious and powerful force in Japan. No wonder. Japan is so open-minded when it comes to men and women. Tan Shio let out a strange smile. He didn't use any weapon and directly bombarded the incoming fists with his fists. The sky was filled with fist shadows as fast as lightning, but Tan Shio's punching speed was faster than theirs. Not only that, it was more than twice as fast. In just a few breaths, Tan Shio had already blasted out hundreds of punches. For mournful screams came from the mouths of the burly men who arranged the guardian deity fist array. Fists collided with flesh, smashing their fists into a pulp. The bones in their arms broke inch by inch, and their muscles turned into fried dough twists. The array was broken. Tan Xiao shook his head with some regret. He instantly unleashed the divine sword and swept it across the four men's necks. As the huge heads were tossed away, blood gushed into the pillar and sprayed out a blood mist. Standing on the roof, Yuji's eyeballs nearly popped out of her eye sockets. Others didn't know the strength of her four loyal subordinates, but she was very clear about it. She used a secret method to train these four subordinates and spent a lot of resources to train them. Each of them was stronger than King Kong. Even a solid iron ball the size of a head could be smashed by them with one punch. But the four of them arranged the guardian deity fist array. The array made their strength stronger and their bodies stronger. Under such circumstances, how could they be bombarded into such a miserable state by the opponent? Her heart ached. The pain made it difficult for Yuji to breathe. She paid a huge price, but they were so easily killed by the opponent. This was like using a knife to ruthlessly cut her heart countless times. "I'm going to kill you." A huge aura burst out of Yuji's body and her figure flashed lightning fast toward Tang Xiu. The people who were fighting in the surroundings couldn't help but retreat to the sides to avoid the pressure of this huge aura. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. With a flick of his wrist, the Starquake divine art was instantly activated. As the long sword in his hand moved toward the air, layers of spiral sword light instantly pierced through Yuji's body. Impossible! Yuji's figure abruptly came to a halt. She looked down in disbelief at the bloody holes on her chest, abdomen, legs, and even shoulders. With her cultivation level comparable to a nascent soul stage powerhouse, she could clearly feel the loss of vitality in her body. Tan Xiu didn't stop there. As the divine sword was instantly taken back into his body, a lightning-fast finger wind sealed more than a dozen acupoints all over Yuji's body, preventing the Sarira golden core from flying out and reducing the loss of vitality in her body, making her completely powerless and harmless. "Stop!" Tan Xiu snapped the moment he grabbed Yuji's neck. In an instant, everyone in the fight stopped, especially Yuji's subordinates, who all looked incredulous. However, at the moment when all the enemies were stunned, Tan Xiu's left hand moved quickly and tore a bloody hole on Osashi Kitajishi's neck, while a long sword pierced his heart. The moment Tang An's figure appeared, she manipulated her immortal sword to kill an expert near Osashi Kitajishi. At the same time, Mo Au and the others also acted brazenly, launching sneak attacks that severely injured or killed the nearby enemies. A slight mistake in a showdown between experts would result in death without a burial. Tan Xiu's move was very ingenious and ruthless. 10 minutes later, all the enemies in the Shao boat were either killed or captured. Those who tried to kill their way out were also stopped by Kawako's people. After suffering more than a dozen casualties, Mo Au and the others rushed over and killed them all. Additionally, those from the North Star One Blade School who didn't belong to Kawako were also killed. The ones who killed them were those under Kawako's control. For a time, the crisis was completely resolved. Inside the Shao boat house, Tan Xiu casually threw Yuji to the floor and walked to the chair opposite her. After taking a seat, he said in a deep voice, "Detain Osashi Kidishi first. Give him a healing pill if his vitality is draining too fast." "Understood," Mo Au respectfully replied and strode out of the room. Tan Xiu then looked at Yuji and indifferently asked in fluent English, "The injuries you suffered may not necessarily kill you. I have a way to save you and spare your lowly life. But you need to cooperate with me. You can live well if I'm satisfied." Yuji's face was ashen as she shook her head and said, "I know what you want to ask me. Unfortunately, I can't tell you even if I die. The most terrible thing in the world isn't death, but being unable to live or die," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "I can make you live in endless pain and torment for a year, a decade, or even a century. Of course, I'll also give you a chance to live safe and sound. It's up to you how to choose." Yuji's eyes were full of fear. After a long while of silence, she slowly said, You can't make me stay if I'm determined to die. Tan Xiu raised his hand to take off the bronze mask on his face and sneered. I'm a Chinese, and I'm hailed as a divine doctor in China. Further, I'm a cultivator with countless means at my disposal. Keeping you alive and torturing you is something I can do easily. Chapter 1131. Yuji had previously faintly guessed that Tan Xiu was a cultivator from China. Now that she got confirmation from him, her heart sank to the bottom. Ever since she was taken to the bed by the palace master, she was strictly warned that even if she provoked the cultivators of the Western world, she must never provoke the cultivators of China and Buddhism. For 80 years, Yuji's cultivation had been constantly improving with the help of the joyous divine art. Thus, she gradually forgot the palace master's warning. But now, she finally understood how powerful cultivators were. She also knew that Kawako's backer was a cultivator from China. To live? To die? Or to live a life worse than death? Yuji didn't hesitate about the three choices and directly said, I'll tell you everything you want to know. I just hope that you'll let me go far away after I tell you what you want to know. Leave Japan and Asia. You're not qualified to talk to me about conditions. Tan Xiu shook his head. Besides, I'm afraid you would have left long ago if you could go far away so easily, no? How do you know? Yuji's expression changed. There must be someone in the joyous palace you're afraid of. Tan Xiu sneered. That person can easily find your whereabouts. Even if you flee to the ends of the earth, I'm afraid you won't be able to escape from him. If you were to reveal his information, I'm afraid you'll be hunted down endlessly. Yuji fell into silence. She knew that what Tan Xiu said was the truth. The palace master's divine ability was very strange. Once she betrayed him, he would have a way to find her no matter where she fled to. Even if he didn't do it himself, he would probably send a large number of assassins from the joyous palace to hunt her down endlessly until she was killed. The other possibility was that the palace master would personally take action. At that time, it wouldn't be as simple as being killed, but a life worse than death. You may be powerful, but you're nothing but an ant to me, said Tan Xiu calmly. As long as you do what I want, not only can I save your life, but I can also preserve your cultivation. My injuries are too severe and my body is severely damaged. Yuji shook her head and said, even a celestial being can't cure me. The best outcome would be to use the reincarnation secret technique to seize someone else's body. At that time, the soul compatibility would be very low. Even if he were to cultivate again, it would be very difficult to achieve any results. Sensing Yuji's unwillingness, Tan Xiu immediately took out a bottle of healing medicine from his interspatial ring and quickly stuffed it into her mouth. Then he personally stripped her naked and looked at the various wounds on her body. He directly picked her up and walked to the bathroom. After filling the bathtub with warm water, he poured the medicine inside and said, I'm sure you've already felt the effect of the medicine I just gave you. If you soak in this warm water for half an hour, you will be able to survive and even obtain great benefits. Now, you just need to tell me, are you willing to work for me? Yuji's heartbeat sped up. She realized that this Chinese cultivator had a mysterious and unfathomable divine ability that might even have an effect on her. She immediately replied resolutely, I'm willing. Tan Xiu threw her into the bathtub and quickly undid the restriction on her body. Then he said in a deep voice, those who follow me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. You should know the consequences of betraying me after making your choice. You'll suffer great pain, but you must endure it for at least half an hour. The longer you persist, the greater the benefits will be. I'll wait for you outside. After saying that, Tan Xiu directly walked out of the bathroom. He didn't have the slightest interest in Yuji's naked body. After all, her body was even inferior to a prostitute in his eyes. A heart-wrenching scream came from the bathroom behind him. Tan Xiu, however, ignored the scream. Anyone who wasn't injured would be in extreme pain after being tempered by the body-refining medicine. Yuji, on the other hand, had wounds all over her body, many of which touched her internal organs. The pain brought to her by the body-refining medicine was 10 times more than that of an ordinary person. Half an hour later, Tan Xiao arranged a feng shui array around Xiaofeng. This array didn't have much offensive power, but it had a very strong defensive power. Whether it was an external attack or an internal explosion, there was no way to easily rush out if one didn't know how to break the array. He was on guard. Although he was very powerful and had the chance to defeat a spirit formation stage expert, he wasn't 100% sure that he could make the other party stay if they wanted to escape and had a secret escape technique. After arranging the array, Tang Xiu came to the place where Osashi Kitajishi was imprisoned. In just 10 minutes, Osashi Kitajishi spilled out everything he knew about the matter. He even revealed some of his guesses and thoughts. However, Tan Xiu didn't spare his life and directly killed him. The next morning, when the first ray of sunlight rose from the east, Yuji, who was dressed in clean clothes, came out of her room and came to the courtyard. She saw Tang Xiu sitting cross-legged on a blue stone and a cold glint flashed in her eyes. "How should I address you, mister?" This time, Yuji didn't speak English but asked in fluent Mandarin. Tan Xiu lightly glanced at her and said, "Tan Xiu." Yuji covered her mouth and chuckled. "You're very powerful, Mr. Tang. You're the strongest person I've ever seen aside from Miyagi. It's just that I'm feeling very good now, and I've never felt so good before. That's why I'd like to consult you, Mr. Tang." Challenge. A disdainful look flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he lightly said, "It's impossible for you to recover from your injuries even if you have holy healing medicine and body refining medicine. The feeling you're having now is due to the enhancement of your physique. If you really think you can challenge me now, then you're gravely mistaken." Yuji's expression slightly changed, but she restored her smiling expression in an instant and smilingly said, "Mr. Tang, we Japanese have always respected the strong. I think Kawako Yamamoto is condescending to serve you because of your strength. If you want me to be your subordinate, then I hope you can make me submit completely." "Allow me, Secmaster." Mo Awe floated over and respectfully said. Tan Xiu shook his head and lightly said, "Since she chose to challenge me, then I'll satisfy her request. All, you have a good physique, so I'll tell you one thing today. You can defeat your enemy with a strong physique even if your cultivation level is slightly lower." With that said, Tan Xiu instantly appeared in front of Yuji and blasted her without any fancy moves. The fist shadow was as fast as a meteor and bombarded Yuji's abdomen in nearly the blink of an eye. Immediately after, Tan Xiu soared up and kicked hundreds of lightning-fast kicks in a second, including at least a dozen kicks on Yuji's body. It was a violent and frantic storm. Although Yuji felt that she was in a good state and realized that Tan Xiu was very strong, she never dreamed that the gap between them would be so big. The competition was not like a fight to the death. It was very difficult for the contestants to unleash their most powerful attacks because they had to be careful not to kill their opponents. She felt that Tan Xiu's attack yesterday was the most powerful one he could unleash with his sword. Now that he didn't use his sword, even if he was very powerful, he could only be on par with her. However, only after feeling the constant blows to her body did she realize that she was so wrong. "I admit defeat." Less than half a minute later, Yuji, who was bombarded and screamed many times, finally couldn't help but beg for mercy. Tan Xiu stopped his attacks and returned to the big blue stone to sit cross-legged. He looked at the battered and exhausted Yuji, who was bleeding from the corner of her mouth, and indifferently said, "I was just testing my moves yesterday, so I didn't really ravage you. Since you asked for it today, then I might as well fulfill your wish." Yuji wiped the blood stain on the corner of her mouth and looked at Tan Xiu with particularly bright eyes. She staggered to the front of Tan Xiu, directly knelt down and slowly said, "Thank you for sparing my life. You're indeed very strong, but there's still a big gap between you and Miyagi. Further, Miyagi has many subordinates and experts in the entire Joyous Palace are as many as clouds in the sky. You're no match for him with your strength alone. Kawako is just a nobody. She can't even be ranked in the top 30 in the Joyous Palace given her current cultivation. So, take her and leave the island country quickly. Don't worry, I'll never reveal your secret." Having said that, she stomped the ground and bolted away like a sharp arrow. Her speed was extremely fast and she appeared outside the Shao boat in nearly the blink of an eye. He didn't chase after me? Yuji was happy inwardly and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. However, a second later, the smile on her face froze. A transparent energy shield emerged, causing Yuji to be in extreme pain and her body was sent flying in an instant. Fortunately, she was very agile and didn't fall to the ground. Several figures appeared near Yuji, but they didn't attack her and just looked at her distressed appearance with strange smiles. Shueisha raised his hand to touch his chin and let out a strange smile. This array was personally arranged by Sect Master, Bell. I'm afraid you won't be able to step out of it even if you're several times stronger. Just try if you don't believe me. I just hope you don't come crying to Sect Master and beg for mercy. An array? Yuji's complexion turned pale. She knew how powerful arrays were because her master, the Princess of the Joyous Palace, was an expert in arranging arrays, some of which even she was afraid of. Break it! Yuji unwillingly bombarded the energy shield. Ripples spread out and the energy shield calmed down, but Yuji was shaken back. Tangguang didn't say anything but directly threw a sharp longsword at her. Yuji's breathing stagnated. After catching the longsword, she brandished the sword and kept attacking the energy shield in front of her. But it was all in vain. She simply couldn't break this array and couldn't escape. Finally, Yuji returned to Tan Shio with a fearful expression and knelt down. Chapter 1132. Yuji was a smart woman and was once regarded as the brains of the Joyous Palace's master, a terrifying figure. It was precisely because of her wisdom that the palace master dreaded her and exiled her from the Joyous Palace to work for him outside. Before this, Yuji was afraid of Tan Shio's strength. She didn't choose to betray the Joyous Palace master even when facing the threat of death. Although she verbally agreed to submit to Tan Shio, she was very resistant inside. She even planned to ask Tan Shio for advice after recuperating. On the one hand, she could probe Tan Shio's strength more deeply, and on the other hand, she was ready to escape at any time. However, at this moment, her heart was ice cold. Because she noticed that this young cultivator from Huaxia didn't just possess an extremely formidable cultivation, his intelligence was extremely terrifying as well. He seemed to be able to see through her intentions and set up a feng shui array around her while she was recuperating. What should I do? Do I really have to submit to him? But what about the restriction inside my body if I do? I can indeed escape and suppress the restriction for a while, but I'm bound to be affected by it after a long time. Only death awaits me when I lose my mind. Tang Xiu, who was sitting cross-legged on the big blue stone, calmly watched Yuji's unsightly expression and slowly asked after she fell into silence, "Do you know why I didn't force you to ask about the Joyous Palace's situation before? Did you think I couldn't escape?" asked Yuji thoughtfully. "That's just one of the reasons." Tan Shio shook his head. "It's not even the main reason." "What's the reason then?" asked Yuji with a frown. "When I removed the restriction on you, I also placed another restriction on you," said Tan Shio indifferently. "It's just that you didn't notice it. Of course, I also noticed that there was another restriction inside your body at that time. If my guess is correct, it should be the Joyous Palace Master who planted it in your body with the purpose of preventing you from betraying him." "You can sense it?" cried Yuji in amazement. Tan Shio sneered and said, "When it comes to divine abilities and secret arts, if I dare to claim to be the best in this world, no one dares to claim to be the second. In my opinion, a restriction set up by a mere soul formation stage Buddhist cultivator is nothing more than a joke. If I wanted to, I could easily remove it." Yuji's expression drastically changed. She stared at Tang Shio and resolutely said, "I'll sell my life to you if you can unlock the seal the Joyous Palace Master has cast on me." "That's right. Your life is worthless." Tan Shio shook his head and said, "With your current cultivation, I'll have a lot of them under me in a few years at most. The reason why I didn't kill you and even wasted some medicinal pills is that you can help Kawako deal with some matters in Japan. Otherwise, do you really think that I've developed a love for talent?" Yuji fell silent. She knew almost nothing about Tan Shio, so she naturally didn't know whether what Tan Shio said was true or not. But one thing was certain. This Chinese cultivator in front of her was definitely the most terrifying person she had ever seen. Even the Joyous Palace Master might not be able to compare to him. Who exactly is this Joyous Palace Master? Asked Tan Xiao in a deep voice. Yuji didn't want to answer the question since she didn't get a promise from Tan Xiao. But then she recalled how terrifying Tan Xiao was and that she had no way to escape. She steeled her heart and decided to gamble everything. She then said in a deep voice, "I'm not particularly clear about the identity of the Joyous Palace Master. I only know one thing. He came to Japan more than 100 years ago and founded the Joyous Palace with his bare hands. Rumor has it that he appeared in front of people as a monk when he came to Japan." Suddenly, Yuji seemed to recall something and said again, "That's right. There's one more thing. He should be from China since he spoke Mandarin when he first came to Japan. Later on, it took me a long time to gradually learn the island's language. If my guess is correct, he should be someone from the Joyous Palace," said Tan Xiao indifferently. "I once heard from a friend in the cultivation world that one of the esoteric Buddhist sects was called the Joyful Sect. It was a pity that the Joyful clan was too different from the Buddhist sects. In the end, they could not be tolerated by the Buddhist sects. Eventually, the Joyful clan was not tolerated by the Buddhist sects. All the members of the Joyful clan were either crippled or killed. It seems that the Joyous Palace's palace master is a remnant of the Joyous sect. Speaking of this, he directly took out his mobile and dialed Miao Wentong's number. After the other party picked up, he said, 'Brother Miao, I need your help.' Miao Wentong asked, 'What is it?' 'Brother Tang, you can say whatever you want. As long as I, Miao Wentong, can do it, I will absolutely do it.' Tan Xiao said, 'When we were chatting, I remember that you mentioned something about the Buddhist sect to me. I want you to personally make a trip to the Buddhist sect and tell them something.' 'What is it?' asked Miao Wentong. 'A remnant of the Joyous sect has appeared in Japan,' said Tan Xiao. 'This remnant is very strong and can already be compared to cultivators at the spirit formation stage, perhaps even stronger. The most important thing is that the other party has a very terrifying force in Japan, which is known as the largest and most mysterious force in the country.' 'The Joyous Sect?' Miao Wentong was surprised. In the past, this sect raped and plundered many women and ruined their pure reputation. I didn't expect that there are still remnants of the Joyous Sect in the present. It's simply unimaginable. Brother Tang, the Buddhist sect sent out a message in the past that they will kill any remnant of the Joyous Sect as long as they find them. All right, I'll immediately rush to the Buddhist sect and inform this matter to the current abbot, Grandmaster White Crane. Thank you, said Tan Xiao. After hanging up, Tan Xiao looked at Yuji again and lightly said, "You still have two choices, but this is also your last chance. Submit to me and assist Kawako Yamamoto in Japan. Or refuse and you'll die today." "Do I have any other choice?" asked Yuji bitterly. "Since you know you have no other choice, then submit to me," said Tan Xiao lightly. "I'll submit to you as long as you can remove the seal inside my body." Yuji nodded. "My life is yours in the future. Since you're willing to hand over your life to me, I'll also place another seal inside your body when I remove the seal inside you," said Tan Xiao. A hint of anger appeared on Yuji's face. "I have a seal inside my body from Sect Master. Do you think you have more face than me?" Kawako sneered. "Let me tell you, Sect Master, sparing your life is already a great gift to you." Yuji fell into silence. "Your strength will continue to improve as long as you choose to submit to me," said Tan Xiao indifferently. "You can even surpass the Joyous Palace's master in the future. Tan Xiao, may not have many things, but I have a lot of elixirs. The more elixirs you can get, the better it will be for your cultivation." Elixirs? Yuji recalled the holy healing elixir Tan Xiao gave her. The effect of that elixir was simply terrifying. Her injuries were so serious back then, but now, new flesh had grown out of the punctured wounds and her damaged internal organs had been healed. Furthermore, the elixir she soaked in had tempered her physique, making it at least 10% stronger than before. "I submit." Yuji kowtowed. Tan Xiao nodded in response. After placing the seal inside Yuji's body, he lightly said, I can't help you remove the seal the Joyous Palace's master placed inside your body for now because he'll find out once I do so. You can rest assured that I'll naturally help you remove it after he dies. I won't be able to live if he dies, said Yuji hurriedly. I know, said Tang Xiu lightly. He cast a very vicious life-sustaining curse inside your body. You can only live if he's alive, and you'll also die if he dies. He can even easily control your life and death. Don't worry. I have a way to save your life when the time comes. Yuji immediately felt relieved after hearing it and respectfully said, Tang, how should I address you? Call me boss. Tan Xiu lightly said. Understood, boss. Yuji nodded. Tell me about the Joyous Palace's situation, said Tan Xiu. How many people does this Joyous Palace have? How big is its power and influence in Japan? I don't know much about it, said Yuji. It's because no one in the Joyous Palace knows everything except the palace master himself. However, I do know a bit about its general structure. The Joyous Palace has a total of 4 elders, all of whom are the palace master's confidants. They were at his side when he appeared in Japan back then. There are also 36 immortal concubines under these 4 elders, and I'm one of them, Yuji. Below the 36 immortal concubines, there are 72 chess pieces. I only know that Osashi Kitajishi is one of the chess pieces and another chess piece. As for who the other 70 chess pieces are, I don't know. Who's the other chess piece? Asked Tan Xiu. Daikura Sakuraji, answered Yuji. The Inada Society's master. The Inada Society? Tan Xiu turned to look at Kawako Yamamoto. The Inada Society is a very famous martial arts school in Japan, sect master, said Kawako respectfully. I didn't expect that its master, Daikura Sakuraji, is also a member of the Joyous Palace. I've had dealings with him before. He's quite strong, but he's also fond of money and women. Kawako, since the Joyous Palace's master has noticed you, you can choose to stay dormant for the time being. Tan Xiu nodded. Tell all your subordinates who haven't been exposed to continue doing what they should be doing. It won't be a problem if they want to leave Japan temporarily. My men will be fine as long as Yuji doesn't say anything, said Kawako hesitantly. I'm boss's man, so I naturally won't betray you and your men, said Yuji hurriedly. I need you to do as I say, Yuji, said Tan Xiu calmly. Chapter 1133. The Inada Society was a very famous martial arts school in Japan with hundreds of branches, each guarded by a disciple of the master, Daikura Sakuraji. Tianhe District. The Inada Society's HQ was a manor that covered an area of tens of acres. Aside from buildings, there was also a spacious training ground. The HQ only had a few disciples, but most of them were elites. Inside, on the north side of the small bridge and flowing water was a rockery, while on the north side of the rockery was a Japanese-style 2-story building. Daikura Sakuraji was drinking sake and enjoying the massage of 2 beautiful women on the second floor's window. As for the thick cigar, it was emitting green smoke in spirals. Bam, 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 the sound of wooden clogs came from the stairs. Shortly after, a burly and stocky man with a samurai sword hanging on his waist appeared in front of Daikura Sakuraji. He bowed and said, Master, we have a big client here. Daikura Sakuraji didn't even bother to lift his eyelids and asked indifferently, What big client? He said he came from Singapore. He knows that there are many underground forces in Japan, so he's worried about his safety, so he came here to hire bodyguards, said the burly man. He also said that money is not an issue. What he wants is safety. Money is not an issue? Daikura Sakuraji finally looked up slowly and lightly asked, How many people do you want? 100, answered the burly man. What? Daikura Sakuraji's expression changed and looked incredulous. The business of his HQ was not to teach students to practice martial arts, but to train experts to act as bodyguards for others. It was more like a bodyguard company than a martial arts school. 100 people? He had founded the Inada Society for more than 40 years, yet this was the first time he heard that someone hired 100 bodyguards at once. One had to know that the price of each bodyguard here was very high. How big of a boss would have to be to hire 100 of them? Who is this guy? The burly man shook his head and said, he just said that his surname is Tang, and he's the son of a wealthy businessman from Singapore. He came to Japan to play this time. On the one hand, he wants to experience the customs of Japan, and on the other hand, he wants to find some gambling buddies and gamble with them. Gambling buddies? Did he say who his gambling partner is? Asked Daikura Sakuragi with a frown. The burly man shook his head and said, he didn't say anything. I think his identity is not simple. Daikura Sakuragi was silent for half a minute. He then threw the cigar into the ashtray, got up and waved at the two beautiful women. He grabbed the coat on the hanger and put it on while saying, someone who can hire 100 bodyguards at once is definitely not an ordinary person. Let's go. Take me to see him in person. A few minutes later, in the VIP room, Daikura Sakuragi saw Tan Shio with his legs crossed. When his eyes glanced at the two men and two women next to Tan Shio, he immediately squinted his eyes and smilingly said, you must be Mr. Tang, right? Welcome to the island nation. Tan Shio turned to look at the disguised Kawako and asked in English, what did he say? He's the master of the Inada Society, Daikura Sakuragi, explained Kawako. Tan Shio immediately understood. He stood up and stretched out his hand, saying, Mr. Sakuragi, nice to meet you. You should be able to understand me if I speak English, right? I'm really sorry, but my family moved to Singapore many years ago, so I only speak our country's language, English, and Chinese. Daikura Sakuragi knew that most of the people in Singapore were Chinese, so he wasn't surprised by Tan Shio's words. He nodded and spoke in fluent English. Mr. Tang, English is the international language, so I naturally know some. You're our big customer here, so you can ask for anything you want. Your men should have told you that I need 100 bodyguards, said Tan Shio with a smile. Also, it's my first time here, so I don't know much about this place. Besides, I accidentally lost the contact information of a gambling friend of mine, so please help me find him. 100 bodyguards is no problem, said Daikura Sakuragi with a smile. I'll also give you a discount on the price. But how long do you want to hire them, Mr. Tang? As for that gambling friend of yours, I can help you find him as long as he's still in Kyoto and I know his name. Tan Shio thought for a while before he stretched out a finger and said, a month. What's the name of your gambling friend? Asked Daikura Sakuragi. His name is Nishi Masayoshi. He's from the imperial capital, said Tan Shio with a smile. He invited me to Japan's imperial capital as a guest, but I couldn't come to visit due to time constraints. Nishi Masayoshi? A strange expression appeared on Daikura Sakuragi's face because he knew this man. He was a famous gambler who frequented the major casinos in Japan and had excellent gambling skills. Further, he also knew that this Nishi Masayoshi had a travel company. He heard that it was quite big, but he was too lazy to manage it, so he handed it to his men to manage. I'll help you find this Nishi Masayoshi you mentioned, Mr. Tang, said Daikura Sakuragi with a smile. If you're not in a hurry, how about I send someone to find him now? Tan Shio pretended to be pleasantly surprised and nodded repeatedly. Great, that's great. By the way, is there a good casino around here? If possible, it would be best to invite him directly to the casino. I can't wait to spar with him again. It's a very famous casino in the imperial capital. Daikura Sakuragi smiled and said, the owner of that place is a friend of mine. Tan Shio nodded and smilingly said, if so, then I'll have to trouble Master Sakuragi to lead the way. Daikura Sakuragi smiled and said, I'll send someone to arrange 100 bodyguards right away. How are you going to arrange these bodyguards? Should I bring them all at once? Or distribution? Tan Shio waved his hand and pretended to be a playboy. He said loudly, of course, I'll bring them all. I heard that Japan is not very safe. It's full of hooligans. If I run into any trouble, I'll be able to deal with them with more people. Moreover, don't you think it's quite impressive to bring a lot of people with you? Impressive? Daikura Sakuragi was secretly speechless. It was obvious that this guy had 4 bodyguards, 2 men and 2 women, with extraordinary skills. It should be very safe with the four of them protecting him. This guy hired so many bodyguards at once. It was very likely that he wanted to show off his power and prestige. These children from rich families were really fucking arrogant. Daikura Sakuragi naturally wouldn't say these words. In any case, the bodyguards here were all used to make money. He didn't care about what the other party wanted to do if he could make a fortune. Quickly, a large sum of money was transferred to Daikura Sakuragi's account. Equipment and vehicles. All the things needed by the bodyguards were arranged by Daikura Sakuragi. Of course, the expenses were paid by Tanshio. However, Tanshio had his own purpose and naturally didn't mind it. Half an hour later, when the convoy drove out of the Inada Society, Daikura Sakuragi received the news that Nishi Masayoshi, whom Tanshio was looking for, was gambling with someone in the Grand Yacht. Therefore, he directly told the news to Tanshio. Ha! He's indeed worthy to be a gambling friend that young Master Tang appreciates. I heard that he's going on a killing spree when he just arrived in Japan. Let's hurry up and get there. I can already feel my hands itching to fight him for 300 rounds. Tanshio patted Daikura Sakuragi's thighs next to him and laughed without a care in the world. Hiss! Despite being a pawn of the Joyous Palace and a Buddhist cultivator, Daikura Sakuragi still felt a bit of pain from Tanshio's slap. It was really hard for him to imagine that this pale guy next to him, who looked like he had been drinking too much, could still have such great strength. Could it be that he's also a cultivator? Daikura Sakuragi immediately thought of this possibility and asked with a smile, "You don't look that old, Mr. Tang, but you're quite strong, no? Could it be that you're a martial artist?" Tanshio raised his head and contemptuously said, "A martial artist? How could I be such a weakling? My family is very powerful in Singapore. I'm a cultivator." Cough, cough. Sitting in the front seat, Kawako, who had already disguised herself, deliberately coughed a few times to interrupt Tanshio. Tanshio stared blankly for a moment. Then he seemed to recall something and quickly changed the topic. He yawned and said, "Well, you know that I'm very powerful. Even if it's a big brown bear, I can still beat it until its mother can't recognize it." Cultivator? A cultivator? Sure enough, he's this kind of person. A glint flashed in Daikura Sakuragi's eyes. Although Tanshio was interrupted before he could finish speaking, he could still easily guess it. However, he had a feeling that even if this guy sitting next to him was a cultivator, he wouldn't be very strong. He could probably finish him off with just a slap if he wanted to. Hedonistic son of a rich family. No threat at all. Daikura Sakuragi originally wanted to send someone to investigate this guy, but it seemed that it was unnecessary now. As long as he used some tricks, he could get a lot of money from him. If I also join the bet with him and Nishi Masayoshi, I can easily beat them both with my own ability. At that time, the money I'll win will be at least 8 digits, maybe even 9 digits. Daikura Sakuragi thought up to this point and immediately looked forward to it. Grand Pleasure Boat. Outside the gate, 4 middle-aged men in black suits and sunglasses were coldly observing the pedestrians in the surroundings with their hands clasped behind their back. They wouldn't even glance at anyone who passed by them. However, a row of dozens of cars slowly drove over from the distance and stopped at the gate. The 4 men exchanged dismayed glances and looked shocked. What kind of big shot is this? How could such a big fleet of cars be deployed? Even the most powerful big shot of Yamaguchi Hall wouldn't make such a big fleet, right? Chapter 1134. Daikura Sakuragi revered power, but he also regarded wealth as his life. He had been keeping a low profile while accompanying Tanshio, a golden Buddha who had delivered himself to his door. After he stepped out of the door, he saw Tanshio straightening his collar with a smile on his handsome face. He immediately shouted to the 4 security guards of the Grand Pleasure Boat, "Inform your Takeda manager that we have a distinguished guest. Tell him to come and greet him personally." A distinguished guest? The 4 security guards knew Daikura Sakuragi and immediately realized that Tanshio's identity was extraordinary. One of them respectfully complied and hurriedly ran inside. Daikura Sakuragi turned to look at Tanshio and smilingly said, "Please come inside, Mr. Tang." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and strode inside. Although this was a casino, the interior decoration was extremely luxurious. After passing through the magnificent hall, they turned into a wide corridor and walked to the end, where a door appeared in front of them. "This is the Grand Pleasure Boats Casino Hall, Mr. Tang," said Daikara Sakuraji with a smile. "There's also a hall in the opposite direction, a place for leisure and entertainment with many beauties. The rule of this Grand Pleasure Boat is that the rich are the masters here." "The rich are the masters? That's a very good rule," Tan Xiu praised. "I don't have many things, but I do have a lot of money. It seems I'm destined to be a master today." "That's right. Is my good friend Nishi Masayoshi inside?" "He's inside," answered Daikara Sakuraji with a smile. As the hall's door was pushed open, a huge space appeared in front of Tan Xiu. It was at least comparable to a football field, with all kinds of gambling machines and a large number of gamblers occupying the tables or gambling machines, having a great time. However, when Tan Xiu and the others stepped through the door, many people looked at them since the number of bodyguards behind Tan Xiu was too many. Those burly men didn't look like they were here to gamble, but more like they were here to smash the place. "Mr. Sakuraji." A thin man with a handlebar mustache hurried over with several of his men. His eyes glimmered as he glanced at Daikara Sakuraji and finally landed on Tan Xiu. Then he smilingly said, "Welcome, everyone. I presume this is the guest Mr. Sakuraji mentioned, yes?" Tang Xiu rolled his eyes and coldly snorted, "If you have no culture, then don't be a manager here. I don't understand your island language. If you can speak English, then say a few words to me. If you can't, then go do whatever you want. If you can't, just go." Shiro Takeda's face stiffened, and he immediately looked at Daikara Sakuraji. "Manager Takeda, this is Mr. Tang from Singapore. He just hired 100 bodyguards from me and is my most distinguished guest," said Daikara Sakuraji hurriedly. "However, he doesn't understand our island language, so please communicate with him in English." "Master," said Taku. "Shiro Sakuraji." "Sakuraji," Shiro said, Japanese, and can say, "I'm Shiro Taku, the general manager of the Grand Pleasure Boat. You can call me Manager Taku." Hence, he smilingly said, "Hello, Mr. Tang. I'm Shiro Taku, the general manager of the Grand Pleasure Boat. You can call me Manager Taku." Tan Xiu rolled his eyelids and snorted. "I'm here to win money today, so you can go and do whatever you want." "That's right. Where's my dear friend, Nishi Masayoshi? Call him out for me." "Ouch!" An exclamation came from the casino. A middle-aged man with a wretched appearance and short stature directly pushed away the two beautiful girls in his arms and trotted toward Tan Xiu. At the same time, he opened his arms and exclaimed with a pleasantly surprised face, "I'm not dreaming, am I, Mr. Tang? Your amazing partner. Why did he come to the island nation? How did he come to Kyoto? Heavens! Did God hear my prayers and hope that you can come to my country, so he sent you a dream?" Tan Xiu also opened his arms and strode toward the middle-aged man. After the duo hugged each other, Tan Xiu burst into laughter and said, "It's been a long time since we last met, Nishi Masayoshi, haven't we? I didn't expect you to be so eloquent." "I'm so happy to hear that." "That's right. I dreamed that you wanted to gamble with me, so I came to you in a hurry. You're a good friend, aren't you?" Nishi Masayoshi repeatedly nodded and said, "I'm a very good friend indeed. It's definitely a great blessing in my life to have a friend like you. Come, let me show you around this place. This place may not be as big as the casino in Las Vegas, but it's enough to have fun." Nishi Masayoshi. He was Kawako's trusted subordinate. He was an out-and-out gambler on the surface, but he was actually an intelligence agent trained by Kawako. He had been to Country M and gambled a few times in Las Vegas, so he directly pushed him out to cooperate with Tan Xiu this time. Tan Xiu cheerfully turned his head and looked around. He then nodded and said with satisfaction, "Not bad. It's really not bad. Nishi Masayoshi, I heard your name when I just came to Japan. I just didn't expect that you're actually in this casino. Come on, let's find someone to join us. This young master brought a lot of money this time, enough for us to play for 3 days and 3 nights." Nishi Masayoshi's eyes lit up and he asked with a sneaky expression, "How much money did you bring this time, friend Tang? Let's talk first. My luck has been pretty good recently and I won a lot of money. I'm too lazy to find someone to join you if you don't have 8 digits." Tan Shio didn't evade the people in the surroundings and said with a heroic spirit, 8 digits? This young Master Tang's pocket money is more than 8 digits. You're looking down on me. Don't worry. I'm here to gamble with you. Let alone 8 digits, I can even take out 10 digits. 10 digits? At least 1 billion? Everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. They looked at Tan Shio as though they were looking at a gold mine. Even Daikura Sakuraji, the master of the Inada Society, felt his heartbeat speed up several times. Nishi Masayoshi's face flushed with excitement. He rubbed his hands and exclaimed, "That's great. That's enough for me to win. Anyways, friend Tang, do you want to follow the old rules? Or do you want to find someone to join us? Don't worry. We have a lot of rich people in Japan, and those who like to spend a lot of money on the poker table are uncountable. As long as you're willing, I can find a lot of them for you within 2 hours." Tan Shio licked his lips and suddenly grinned. "It's not easy for us to meet again, so it's boring to directly gamble. How about we follow the old rules?" "No problem. That's exactly what I thought," praised Nishi Masayoshi. Daikura Sakuraji strode to the front of Tan Shio and Nishi Masayoshi and smilingly asked, "Mr. Tang, Mr. Nishi Masayoshi, may I ask what your old rules are? I wonder if I'm qualified to play with you?" "Me too." A bald, tattooed, middle-aged man came over. He wore a dazzling golden chain around his neck and held several chips in his hand. Nishi Masayoshi seemed to notice Daikura Sakuraji at this moment and immediately said with a smile, "Mr. Daikura Sakuraji, it's an honor to have you play with us. Anyways, friend Tang, let me introduce you." Tan Shio raised his hand to interrupt Nishi Masayoshi and said, "I know him. I just hired 100 bodyguards from him." Nishi Masayoshi exclaimed, "You're really generous, friend Tang. You hired 100 bodyguards at once. This lineup is even bigger than when we were in Las Vegas. Anyways, let me introduce you to this one. He's Saburo Koizumi, the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. He's also a famous big shot in Kyoto. Don't worry. I can guarantee that Mr. Daikura Sakuraji and Mr. Koizumi both have more than 9 digits of wealth. They are absolutely qualified to play with us." Tan Shio raised his brows and immediately grinned. "Great. That's great. I just came to Japan, but I found that I'm about to fall in love with this country. It's great to be rich. Come on, let's play together. I have too much money to spend, so it doesn't matter if I win or lose." "You haven't told me how we're going to play," said Daikura Sakuraji. Nishi Masayoshi noticed that Tan Shio didn't seem to want to explain, so he immediately said, "Actually, friend Tang and I are going to play a very simple game. Each of us will take out $100 to buy chips. Then, we'll randomly pick a gambling machine or a card table in the entire hall. Whoever can use $100 to earn more money in 2 hours will lose a fixed sum of money to the other party. In the past, the amount we set was $10 million. Tan Shio waved his hand and said, $10 million is bullshit. Now that I've come to your country, $10 million is too stingy. $100 million. This, Daikura Sakuraji and Saburo Koizumi's complexion changed and they looked hesitant. They were able to take out $100 million. It would be fine if they won, but it would be a huge blow to them if they lost. It would take at least several years for them to earn back the money they lost. What should we do? Are we going to retreat just like that? For a moment, the two of them were in a dilemma. Tan Shio raised his brows and said with dissatisfaction, "What's wrong? Do you think the game is too big? You can't afford to play? It's fine. I'm not familiar with you anyway, so I won't laugh at you if you can't afford to play. At most, you'll lose a lot of face when you leave, and you'll find a quilt to cover yourself when you return home. You won't have the face to see anyone for some time." It was a provocation. Although Daikura Sakuraji and Saburo Koizumi could tell that Tan Shio was trying to goad them into action, they couldn't back down and could only nod helplessly. They were all famous big shots in Kyoto, So how could they afford to lose their face? If they were to give up today, most of the people in Kyoto would probably know that they were timid before gambling, and their reputation would suffer a huge loss. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.